I'd like to call the Finance, Audit, and Budget Committee for Thursday, October 21st, 2021 to order. Please rise for the pledge.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next item is adoption of agenda. I need a motion to adopt.
Romano adopts the agenda.
Zinner, support.
Motion made by Romano, supported by Zinner. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, please vote.
Van Sickle, yes.
Motion passes 10-0.
Next item is approval of minutes dated October 19th, 2021. Need a motion to approve.
Support Matusik.
Made by Wallace, supported by Matusik. Any discussion? Seeing none, please vote.
Motion passes 10-0.
Next item is public participation. This is the first opportunity for public participation for those who would wish to speak for a maximum of 3 minutes on an item which is on today's agenda. We'll also have a second opportunity for public participation for those who would like to speak on any issue. Would anyone from the public like to speak? Please come up to the podium. Going once. Going twice. We'll close public participation. Next item is budget reviews. First budget today is animal control, and we have Chief Animal Control Officer Jeff Randazzo presenting his budget. Just need a motion to receive and file.
Moved by Romano.
Support Van Sickle.
Made by Romano and supported by Van Sickle. Jeff, you have the floor.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. We're here today to present the animal control budget. The total recommended budget for the 2022 budget is $2,657,100. In there, you have reimbursements, which are contracts from Roseville and St. Clair Shores on the revenue side there for $202,700. You have charges for services, which is comprised mainly of kenneling for $128,000. And then licenses and permits, which are mainly pet licenses for $250,000. So there's a total revenue there of $580,700 to offset that expenditure. And then we have Deputy Executive Vicki Wilbur here today to talk a little bit about some changes to some of the kenneling charges that you're seeing in the budget here today. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Yes, normally I wouldn't speak at a budget hearing, but in the past couple of weeks we had a change, so since it emanated from our office, I thought I would at least come and speak to it. Many of you that have been on previous boards know, and others in your communities may know as well, there is certain areas in the county that county animal control covers, and then there are other jurisdictions that get some services from us. And there has been much discussion over the years about charges for services, why we do that, and the history of that. Most recently, from last year's board, there was a credit asked for those communities that do get charged of $60,000 last year. That discussion has continued, has picked up, and more recently we made the decision and would basically like to reduce the revenue in the charges for services line item by $63,000. And essentially what that will do, it will remove any community in the county being charged for kennel or shelter services or having their animals come into our shelter. Therefore, that at least puts all the communities in the county on even par for not being charged for at least that service fee. Really, the only two service fees that will then remain are for jurisdictions that would like to have their own dedicated animal control officer provided by the county. And that would be, right now, the only two currently that we have that pay for that service are Roseville and St. Clair Shores. So again, it would be an adjustment of essentially $63,000. It does not increase our expenditures. It does not increase services. When it comes to, the kenneling and shelter and that, it's up and down on how those services are needed throughout the county. So we just wanted to present that to you today as part of the budget discussion for this year. And then obviously myself, Jeff, and Steve can take any questions.
Okay, first, Commissioner Song.
Thank you, Chair. My question is regarding the licensing and permits for pets. I understand some local jurisdictions use COVID CARES Act to kind of waive those fees. Was there any discussion for doing that countywide or even for next year?
No, but we did not ever discuss that, or what we do have is pet retention grants. So for a person that's maybe having financial hardship, we have a grant that we could pay for those licenses and other services as well. So providing dog training or maybe get a gate for them. But we really focused in 2020 and 21 with grant funding to help people retain their pets, and that also included licensing.
Okay, great. Thank you.
But it wasn't through the CARES Act.
Got it. Thank you, Chair.
Commissioner Matuzak?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Two questions. So for Vicki, this reduction, is that reflected in our budget book, or is this?
No, it's not.
So we
No.
have to subtract that from
Correct. Yes,
that
and
revenue?
finance obviously can prepare that for you
Yeah.
for a future meeting too, or when you adopt the
Right.
whole budget. Yep.
Yep, I just wanted to make sure of that.
Sure.
My second question is about vehicle operations line item. It's more is this just for maintaining the vehicles? How do you purchase vehicles? Where is that found in the budget?
That's going to be in the internal service funds,
Okay.
where that gets done, and then it gets charged back through chargebacks to the departments.
Okay, do we take advantage of the sort of group purchasing with the sheriff's department and that sort of
Yes.
stuff? Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Van Sickle?
Thank you, Chair. What's driving the need for more clerical staff?
So we always had four office assistants, and during COVID, during the year of 2020, it was an open position, so we unfunded it. And now that we're opening back up to the public and we're doing adoptions, we're doing a lot of transport. So currently we have a save rate of 96%, which is one of the highest in the state. But that's due to us, opening up the doors, having our partners come in, transport the animals out of there, doing public adoptions, licensing, and just welcoming the public back into the building. And we're dispatching for 21 communities.
Thank you. Thank
You're
you,
welcome.
Chair.
Commissioner Zinner?
Thank you, Chair. So if an animal is lost in another city other than the two cities that have their own worker, someone sees this animal, and they're automatically going to call the county. They're automatically going to call the county area, aren't they?
So what would happen is there's four communities that have their own animal control. So Warren, Sterling Heights, Mount Clemens, and East Point. And they have their own shelter license. So however, there could be a chance that animal would end up at Macomb County Animal Control if we have the space and they bring the animal over. However, all those communities are encouraged. They have their own Facebook page. There's also For the Love of Louie that they would post those animals on. So our staff is required to talk to the owner, where did they lose their dog, and so that we give them the right avenue to choose for the best option to find their dog back, or lost pet. Not to have to be a dog, could be cats, right? Does that make sense? That
Yeah,
each community has their.
So the county facility, if that was there, would not contact these areas? I assume they're going to have a tag.
Oh no! So not all animals that are lost have tags
Well,
or
I
microchips.
understand that.
Yeah.
If they have a tag, the county would not take that animal back. I assume the county would contact.
The owner. So if an animal had a tag and was brought into Macomb County Animal Control, whether it's a microchip or ID tag, we would contact the owner right then and there. We would not send that pet back to wherever it was found. We were going to contact those owners right from Animal Control and then set up an arrangement to get the animal back to their rightful owner.
But I appreciate your explanation before. Thank you very much.
Not a problem. Any
Thank you,
questions?
Chair.
That's what I'm here for.
Still in the first round here, Commissioner Kleinfeld.
Thank you, Chair. So when I went in and talked to Vicki earlier, there was a discussion about the state law now requiring those that have their own animal control officer to have their own shelter license, correct?
Correct.
So how is that going to work in down the road? With the discussion on the possible new facility down the road, we won't be able to have agreements with them because of this new state law?
No, we would still always have agreements or understandings that if they have their own shelter, they could house their animals there at their own facility. And if they do bring us animals, then we would, make sure that it's transferred in their system over to us. So it's no different if we transfer an animal to Oakland County Animal Control. That's up for adoption. We could, by law, you could always transfer.
No, I think I was thinking if we built a brand-new facility, everybody would be able to use it, and it doesn't, it just dawned on me that won't be the case.
I don't know if I'm understanding, so just make sure I'm right. So say we build a new building, and then those that have their own animal control now want to come on board with Macomb County.
Yes.
So you could either do one of two things. We could keep their shelter license, so in the event that they ever want to hold an animal overnight or for a weekend at a police department, they could do so, because now they still have that shelter license.
Okay, gotcha.
Yep, but
Okay.
if they came on with us, we would always have our county shelter license. That's the umbrella.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Chair.
Second round, Commissioner Matuzak.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This morning, I posted a picture on Facebook of my cat helping me, my rescue cat helping me study the budget. In fact, for this budget, this
That's
particular
smart.
budget. So I would like you to shamelessly make a plug for the Fill the Trailer event.
Yes, wonderful.
Take it away.
You want me to do something about Fill the Trailer?
It's your
Gotcha, okay.
project.
I thought we were talking about budgets. I'm writing down budget stuff. Over Halloween weekend, the 29th, 30th, and 31st, we are going to do our annual Fill the Trailer. So we teamed up with Pet Supply Plus, so they also do our adoptions. And in years past, we filled this trailer up with 18,000 pounds of pet food that we distribute to homebound seniors and folks that are on our county food program. And so I think it's a really important, and it's being held we bring our trailer over to Clinton Township Pet Supply Plus, and they'll be there the 29th, 30th, and 31st of October. So we encourage everybody to, donate to that program, because one, it's amazing programs for Macomb County food program, and that, so it's not just for them, it's also obviously for the pets. And like I said, in years past, it's been about 18,000 pounds of food that we distribute. Yeah, your animal control.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Sorry, I got lost on
Commissioner
that one.
Van Sickle.
Thank you, Chair. In one of your previous statements, you mentioned For the Love of Louie. I assume that's a pet site or a website?
That is on Facebook, and it's a site that they use throughout Michigan for either lost pets to be posted by the finder or for pet owners to post their lost pets. And so we post all our pets on that as well. And so that's a Facebook site that we would direct people to post their lost pet, or we post our pets on there as well.
Is that site, I'll say, advertised on our county website animal control page?
Yes. Yep, so it's something that's advertised on our website, and then also our stray animals are posted onto, we have a thing called Pet Harbor. And so as soon as our animals we take a picture of them, it's uploaded into what we call Pet Harbor and then shared onto For the Love of Louie.
Okay, good. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Chair.
Commissioner Brown.
Following up on Commissioner Matuzak's reference, in my community, we have a Halloween for our dogs.
I
And
like it.
it's a fun event and raises money for charity as well. So if you're not doing anything, bring your dog and their costume out to north end of Macomb. I'll get you the contact of the local pet supply store there. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, definitely send me the
And
information.
my
I'd love
dog
that.
Flash 1 year was a recipient of one of those awards a long time ago. God rest his soul. And a lot of fun. Kids turn out. It's a lot of fun. So
It is.
Add a little levity to our.
And it's a great
heavy
community
budget
event,
meeting.
right? Something to bring the communities together.
That's it, exactly. Thanks a lot. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, seeing no other speakers, please vote. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Vicki.
Thank you, and welcome to all the new commissioners.
And I would like to thank you all for doing that. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Motion passes 10-0.
Okay, next budget is community mental health. Need a motion to receive and file. Moved by Kraft, supported by Wallace. Dave, we have our CO here to talk. You had to come up by yourself.
No problem. Well, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Dave Pankatai. I'm the CEO for Macomb County Community Mental Health. Couple of points I wanted to touch on, and with me today is Richard Carpenter, our CFO. Over the last year, we became the recipient of a federal grant for about $3.4 million. It was a 2-year grant. It'll run through April of next year. It allowed us to become a certified community behavioral health clinic, or CCBHC, which allows us to do integrated health care. So at our north location on Groesbeck, we're co-located with a physical health care provider. So really it's kind of a one-stop shop where we can serve the whole person in one area. More recently now, just on October 1st of this year, that was expanded. We became part of the state of Michigan's demonstration project to be a CCBHC. So we're actually running 2 of those programs right now concurrently. The one that started in October allows us to do even more. So it allows us to see people who are not seriously mentally ill. They could fall into the category of mild to moderate. So people with some generalized anxiety issues, depression, things like that, we can actually serve them. We'll be able to bill third-party insurances, and we'll have a sliding fee scale, and people who are not insured at all as well. So with that, we've expanded our community outreach, our marketing, community events, and all of that. We do have a mobile health unit now, thanks to some of the CARES Act funding that came down last year. So you'll see us out and about in the community more. We've also expanded our customer service. We do have a single public-facing phone number now. It's 1-855-99-MCCMH. We had too many phone numbers before, and it was, even more complicated for people to try to get the help that they need when they need it. And we're also starting now that 7-day a week, that phone number will be answered and people will be helped and directed. So that's some of the new stuff on the program side. And with that, for the formal budget presentation is Richard Carpenter.
Good afternoon. Just a couple of highlights related to the CMH budget, and before we jump into some of the numbers specifically, I know that some new commissioners and the Medicaid program in CMH is a little bit different than some traditional programs. So just want to talk about that a little bit. So the vast majority of our funding does come through the Medicaid program, which is a contract with the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, and it runs like an insurance program. So we get premium payments, so we get paid for each eligible person within Macomb County for Medicaid, and then we're responsible for managing that revenue and paying claims for medical services to those that meet the criteria or are eligible for receiving those medically necessary services. So a little bit different from that perspective. One of the things that makes that very unique in terms of the year that we just ended and the budget that we're presenting to you is that in a normal year, we would have what's called a Medicaid redetermination process that the state of Michigan would run. This means they would reevaluate whether or not an individual is eligible for Medicaid, and as such, if they were not, they would no longer be Medicaid eligible, and we would no longer receive a payment for them. Due to the federal emergency that was declared, that Medicaid redetermination process was put on hold and has been on hold since April of 2020. And is currently, we are unsure exactly when that hold will be taken off. So what that means is that individuals that are newly eligible for Medicaid will get on Medicaid and we will get payment for them. But those that may have fallen off of criteria for Medicaid eligibility, they do not come off. So they maintain that Medicaid eligibility for this period of time, which means we continue to receive revenue for them. And so what you will notice in the highlights is that the revenue amount is significantly higher as a result of that Medicaid redetermination process being halted. So just a couple of highlights before we look at the numbers specifically. MDHHS does relook at how much they pay us per person every month, and they did do that again for fiscal year 22, and there was a rate adjustment. And so we've incorporated that rate adjustment into our budget of approximately a 1% increase. And again, that 1% increase is how much we get paid per person, and is in addition to all of the increases in the number of people that we're also serving and receiving payments for. As a result of this increased revenue, again, we pay Medicaid claims, and we are responsible and at risk for those claims, and we're allowed to keep a risk reserve in case those claims were to exceed our revenue in any particular year. I'm happy to report that our revenue projections are going to be sufficient to cover our anticipated claims, and we will not need to utilize any of that reserve for fiscal year 22. We do have some other funding that we receive. It's about $7.5 million. It is from the state of Michigan. It is for the individuals that do not meet the Medicaid criteria, but otherwise may not be able to afford medical services that we provide. And we call that our state general fund contract, our state general fund program. And so we do anticipate that number, $7.5 million, being maintained for this fiscal year, 22. And that we will have sufficient revenue to cover the needs that present for that population within Macomb County. In addition to that, in order to support these programs, we do have a local match requirement for both the general fund program and for the Medicaid program. That match is funded through the appropriation from the commission from the general fund of about $3.7 million. So that request for appropriation is included in this budget, and we do appreciate the support that the commission and the county continues to provide to allow us to meet that match obligation from the state of Michigan. And then, as Dave mentioned, we do have grant revenue that we receive in addition to both the Medicaid and the general fund from the state of Michigan. And the majority of that grant money is the CCBHC expansion grant that we are in year 2 of for this year. So for the Community Mental Health Fund, based on those highlights, we have a anticipated total revenue of $252 million, total expenses of $256 million, the majority of which are services we purchase through our provider network of about $204 million. And then again, that match that we receive from the county general fund of $3.7 million allows us to balance our budget with no anticipated increase or decrease to fund balance at the end of fiscal year 22. And then for our substance use or our substance abuse fund, we have anticipated revenue of $23.6 million. Anticipated expenditures of $26.7 million, the majority of which again is going to be provided through our services purchased from our provider network of just under $25 million. And then we also do get a general fund transfer in for the substance abuse fund of just over $3 million, and that is the Public Act 2 funding that is received by the county from the Convention Facility Fund from the state of Michigan, and then a portion of that gets passed through to mental health. Again, for a net increase of 0 to fund balance per the budget. So those are the highlights in terms of the proposed budget. Happy to either take any questions or try to research anything for the commission.
Thank you. I believe Commissioner Kraft, did you make the motion to receive and file? Can we just amend it to include the substance abuse as well?
Absolutely.
And that was supported by Commissioner Wallace, I believe. Okay, Commissioner Matuzak.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A couple questions. The utilities under community mental health have about doubled. What's up with that?
Let's see. So I know that in 2022, we are anticipating we're transitioning into a new building. And so there is going to be a period of time where we're in transition. And so we've included some additional line items in the budget for that. I would have to do some detailed research into the exact increase and would be happy to do that for you.
Well, that makes sense then, because it drops back down in the projected 23 budget. So what you're talking about is duplicating some bills.
For a period of time, yes.
Okay. And then in both budgets, the mental health budget and the substance abuse budget, there's a substantial increase in contract services. What are your contract services?
So our contract services includes two things. Number one is we purchase medical services from our provider network, and we're required to manage those services within our available funding. So what we do is, as we project the revenue that we're going to receive related to those premium payments, we expect that the majority of that will be purchased through our provider network. And so that's why that service line goes up and down with our revenue. The other thing is that any revenue that we were to receive in a fiscal year that is unable to be spent, after you get to a certain level, you do have to return that contract revenue to the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services. So though that line item represents the anticipated either usage of or purchase of those medical services or the return of that funding to the Department of Health and Human Services.
Okay, and my last question under the substance abuse budget, conferences and training. I sort of don't look at the 2020 and 2021 budgets because they seem more of an anomaly to me. But in comparing that you spent $1,000 on conferences and training in 2019, and now we're talking about $37,000, almost $38,000, what's the difference and why do we need that much more?
So we do have some additional programs that are happening related to substance use that actually started in 2020. But mostly in 2021. So both the CCBHC program, which Dave mentioned, it doesn't just impact our mental health side, it actually impacts our substance abuse side. And then also in fiscal year 2021, we started a new program called the Opioid Health Home Program, both of which require additional training for staff, both within Macomb employees as well as for providers.
Okay, and I guess it wasn't my final question. I have one more, sorry. And you're proposing to do all of these new things with no increase in staff, which is admirable. So I'm confirming that, number one. And number two, how are you doing keeping, retaining, hiring staff in this climate?
I'll pass. I should have mentioned actually in my opening comments, there is a staffing crisis within our system. It's statewide, it's national, actually. We're working very closely with the state of Michigan. It started with the direct care workers, direct support professionals, those frontline caregivers. But it's expanded now to the case managers, therapists, psychiatrists. So it's difficult. We are losing some folks due to retirement, but other than that, I think our turnover rate's about the same as it was before the pandemic. We are able to recruit people, and we are looking at some new staffing positions, but I think overall, it's within the budgeted amount that we're looking at. But we do need to add some new, under the CCBHC grant, for example, there's a care coordinator position, which is a master's level therapist who is helping coordinate the other services that are face-to-face or done directly, but they're more behind the scenes. So they're looking at data, who's been in the hospital, who's missed an appointment, and doing all of those things too. So we are on a growth phase, and we're better able than ever to do more for the people of Macomb County. That the staffing is a limiting factor on us right now, and we're trying to work within those parameters as best as possible.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Kraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to thank Dave, Richard, Ken hiding in the back there, and our whole staff. We've come a long way in the last few years. A lot of the commissioners that are newer here don't know that we were $200,000 away from having to dip into the county's general fund. That's how bad off we were. And now our reserve fund is full.
Yes.
And that has happened in a short amount of time. And I just want to thank our team here for making a lot of changes, making a lot of hard decisions, and moving forward. And we have a lot of work to do still, but we're heading in the right direction. So thank you to the whole team. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Commissioner Zinner.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to know what your expectation is for a year from now, for next year, for an increase or decrease in need for care for our citizens. Expect it to be better, or what's your expectation?
I expect it to be more. So I would not say better at all. All of the literature out there is that we are all stressed, more stressed than ever. The CDC did a very specific study of children, and the statistic was a little over 25% of the children in their survey had actively considered suicide in the last 30 days. So the impact of the pandemic on children is extreme. When I meet with the school system, they're doing a lot, and they have a lot of resources, and we have a lot of in-school programming and things, but that's one example. Substance use, of course, is going up, and now with our ability to see folks in the mild to moderate range, I think the need, we're going to see more and more people coming to Macomb County Community Mental Health for help on physical health, behavioral health, general stress, substance use. Yeah, we haven't seen a spike in utilization. We're seeing kind of a gradual increase. We're tracking our calls to our main line closely. October, it looks like we might actually show another increase, but it's just kind of a gradual slope. It has not been a big spike. So I'm kind of picturing it as a wave, and I don't think we've peaked yet. So I think a year from now, the needs in our community will be more than it is right now.
Well, I thought you might say that, but I wish everybody would realize how special every single person is. And everyone has incredible wealth, every single person of every single age.
Yeah.
I truly believe that. And I'm going to pray every day that everyone will realize that more and more every day that they live. Thank you all for what you do.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Commissioner Van Sickle.
Thank you, Chair. The fund that's listed here on your documents, what is that used for? You have 22 million on one side and 13 million on the other page. Make sure I'm looking at the right
Commissioner, you're referring to your agenda packet?
Yes.
The two budget pages. So one is the Community Mental Health Operating Fund, and then the other I believe you're referring to is substance abuse, which is also part of community mental health, but a separately reported fund.
Right, those are the two categories. What are those funds used for?
That I will turn over to the subject matter experts, but those are the two categories.
And the reason I ask that is because they don't seem to go up or down, they just seem to stay the same from year to year.
So the community mental health fund is specifically related to individuals that either have a severe mental illness, a severe emotional disturbance, or an intellectual or developmental disability. And so we use the revenue received and the expenses to provide specialty services and support, so specialty medical services to those individuals that meet that criteria. Similarly, but separately, the Substance Use Disorder Fund or Substance Abuse Fund is related to individuals that might have a substance use disorder. And again, they might need different types of supports for their path to recovery from that substance use disorder so that they can hopefully overcome and recover from that. And so we get separate funding from the state for the substance use disorder versus the mental health services, and so we keep them separate for that reason. Does that help answer the question?
Partially. You said you use the income. Well, when you were talking about the Community Mental Health Fund, you use the income. Where's that shown in the budget?
The revenue is on the top of the budget. So we have intergovernmental and charges for services. So the intergovernmental revenue at the top of the budget is related to more of the grant funding and the state general funds that we receive. The charges for services are actually those Medicaid premium payments that we receive from the state of Michigan for those services.
Okay, the income from the 22 million investments in the fund, where is that income shown in the budget?
Oh, I see. Okay. Gotcha. So there's interest revenue. Let me find how. We class it. Where did my? Go. Sorry, my crosswalk was not.
Point of order, Chair. I think he's referring to the fund balance, like the remaining fund balance of 22 million, and correct me if I'm wrong. So I think he's asking, like, the remaining fund balance, are those funds invested, or do they sit like in an escrow account? Here on the substance abuse, these are restricted funds. Clarification. Thank you, Chair.
So the funds, the fund balance is included in the county's pooled cash, and so the county treasurer does invest those funds.
Yeah, I'm not asking where the 22 million is listed. I'm asking, you get investment income from that which you said you spend.
So where's the investment income listed as revenue?
So in the recommended budget, the investment income is the third line of 500,000, and then we don't specifically identify which of the categories the 500,000 is spent out of. It's typically included as part of the contracted services, as part of that match that we would potentially pay out for matching our general fund services.
Okay, so now that we've identified that the investment income from the 22 million goes into the investment income line in the revenues, when I look at the substance abuse, I don't see an investment income line in those revenues to account for the investment income from the 13 million.
Are those the PA2 restricted?
Yeah, so that does have to do with the PA2 restricted funds. And no, we don't have specific investment income budgeted in that fund. What typically happens, with the exception of the PA2 that stays in this fund, is any surplus does go into the mental health fund because that's where our Medicaid surplus is identified. So we do keep that budget in the mental health fund.
I didn't understand that.
Substance use has the Public Act 2 funds, which are specifically earmarked for a purpose. So those are kind of in a protected fund. Any of the interest gained on that, what Richard was saying, would roll over to the mental health fund.
Is that shown as one of the, is that a budget item any place in our packet?
Commissioner, it's listed at the bottom of page E5 with the fund balance components. It shows the restricted total of that balance, if that helps.
Well, I'm wondering where the income from the 13 million is going.
So
Do we have income from the 13 million, or is it under somebody's mattress?
it's the income from the 13 million is all included in the 500,000 on the mental health side of the fund. So we keep it in the mental health fund.
Okay, so you're saying the income from the 22 million and the 13 million are all included in the 500,000 in the community health income?
Yes, because that's where we keep the unrestricted funds. We could definitely break that out if that would be preferable.
How are those two funds managed? It would seem that $500,000 on 35 million isn't a very good rate of return. Do we have a committee or a group in the county that manages those, or are they done by the treasurer? Or?
Yeah, it's that's a question best asked to the treasurer. PA 20 funds, of course, have some restrictions on how they're allowed to be invested. So that's why you'll see oftentimes in a lot of governmental funds investment income and effectively interest income in a lot of cases be a bit lower than what you'd see, say, if you were investing yourself in a brokerage account.
But these funds are in the control of the county treasurer?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have. Thank you, Chair.
Just following up on Commissioner Van Sickle's comments. So I do agree. I think that the investment income should be separated based on funds. They are separate funds. I think it does make sense. But Steve, maybe this is a question for you. In regards to the transfers in for the general fund of the $3 million on both sides of these budgets, is that required by law? Even though because I know even when we have a surplus in these funds, we still have to transfer that in. So that doesn't matter if the fund is showing a surplus or it's operating on a negative or positive baseline?
Yes, sir. It's required by law. Those are Medicaid, Medicare matches, as well as the 50% for the convention tax, sometimes known as the liquor tax as well. That's also required by state law.
Okay. Just a couple follow-ups. Don't have to have the answers right now, but I would really like to see, because I didn't see it in the information that was provided to us, was the conferences and training, what the 127 is going to go for, since that budget doubles, and also on the substance abuse side that basically almost doubles. And there's no notation as to what that training is going to be for. If you can provide that to our staff, that would be great. And then also what the approximate breakdown would be for the investment income for both funds. Okay, I do not see any other speakers. Please vote. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Motion passes 10-0.
Okay, next budget is Veterans Services. I need a motion to receive and file.
Motion?
Who made that motion?
Zinner.
Okay, Commissioner Zinner, supported by Commissioner Wallace. Steve and Laura, you have the floor.
Good afternoon again. We're here with Laura Rios. We're going to talk about Veterans Services here today. Laura has a few funds here. Yeah. Got veteran grants that you'll see there on, looks like your agenda packet, page 21. And then you'll also see Veteran Affairs on agenda packet, page 23.
That's the millage.
Steve, do you want to start with D23 first?
D23, yes,
Which is
sir.
the actual budget, and then we can do the grant second?
Yeah, so the overview of this one, very briefly, is that this is the fund where you're going to see the property tax millage being recorded against. So you're going to see a recommended revenue budget of $2,126,200, and that's going to be just about entirely comprised of that tax millage. There are expenses to support veterans then in the amount of $2,125,500, which leaves you with a surplus at the end of the year there of $700 for the year. There's no new FTEs in that ORKey either. And then going to the agenda packet, page 21, the budget book, page D49. You'll see there in our the Veterans Grant Fund, intergovernmental revenues, $473,492. That's mainly from your from the tax prep grant, and then there's a second.
That's from MVAA, Michigan Veterans Affairs.
Michigan Veterans Affairs. So that gives you just about all of that $478,638 there of revenue, and then an equal amount of expenses there that Laura will expound upon there. Again, no FTE increases there. And one thing to just call attention to very quickly, we had some internal services that were recorded there in 2021 that were separate from what we've talked about so much during this process of from our cost allocation plan. They were actually booked locally within that fund. We rolled those into the supplies and services expense line for 2022. So on that note, I will turn it over to you.
Yay. Okay, so I have three funds. One comes from our millage, and that's our operating expenses. I did get the grant from MVAA, which we have discussed before, because this coming year it's going to be $400,000, where this last year it was only $100,000, and that changes every year. And then I did get awarded the IRS grant, which was to hire 3 employees to run our 7 locations that we're going to have this coming year. So what would you like to start with? Okay, so there is some changes to our, I'll start with the millage. There is some changes to the millage from what we did last year to this year because we're trying to utilize our funds, and plus our transportation did change. So you'll see a huge amount change in transportation, because that's including our volunteer drivers. There's no more volunteer drivers, so we contracted with Macomb Community Action, and instead of them providing 2 or 3 days a week, for next year, it's projected up to 5 days a week, whether we have a driver for 5 days a week. But right now we have a driver for 4 days, but if it's projected for 5. So that's big case scenario. I put in for transportation to purchase a vehicle. We don't own a vehicle. We need a vehicle. We do a lot of outreaches. I don't own a van, so I need to carry a lot of stuff. And that would also help transport us to events and conferences and other things. So some other things I did put in here, our conferences went up because we did the last couple years, we did our conferences online. And this year they're opening them back up for next year to be in person, and it's in San Antonio. Our national conference is in San Antonio. So I budget that everybody can go. Whether everybody does go is a different story. We have to go to the local one, which is Michigan, because that's to maintain our CEUs and accreditation with the VA. Our consultant money has also gone up because we are now servicing more veterans for hearing loss and PTSD exams. And that we have contracted out for. So that's our millage in a nutshell. The IRS grant is really to fund 3 people and a little bit of advertising for volunteers. And our MVAA grant is going to be $406,000 for advertising. I budgeted $10,000 for a color copier if purchasing will allow me to purchase a color copier. And then we have Meyer food vouchers, which are emergent need for veterans to get toiletries, because we have a food bank, but they can get dog food and cat food and also toiletries at Myers with this voucher. So, do I have any questions?
Okay, Commissioner Song.
Thank you, Chair. I think you talked a little bit about the conferences and training, but I'm looking at 2019, 2020, and it's still a significant jump to 47,000. So maybe you could provide us a little bit more information about the conferences and in addition to the contract services and supplies and services under veterans grants. So that went from 118,000 to 441. So wonder if you could elaborate on that.
Okay, so first, the conferences is location, location, location. So in 2019, it was Cleveland, and we drove. So there was no airfare. Next year, it's San Antonio. So there's airfare involved with everyone, and plus the hotel expenses more in San Antonio. And
Also, Laura, just to help you out on that question, Commissioner, and the worksheet, she did list all of the conferences and training there for each event. So the detail is there as well.
Right.
Okay, got it.
And plus the
Thank you.
finance, we have a financial coach, and she has to go to training, and every year they change locations also.
Okay.
So the next question was about,
Supplies and services.
is that under the millage, or
That
is
would
that
be under veterans grant, D49.
I don't have that. Okay, so internal services is his money. Supplies, oh. Oh, well. Supplies, services, the 441, obviously is going to go towards the advertising, because the way it must be all grouped together under one group, one fund code, because the way we only are getting 3 things with that. And
Pull that microphone a little closer.
I'm sorry.
There you go. Good, thank you.
Okay, sorry. Okay, so we're only doing 3 things with that grant, and that's advertising, and then, I wrote it out. Oh, the color copier, which will probably go under, let's see, that's probably under supplies and services, and also the Meyer food vouchers. So, once again, the state approves everything, and we just got our approval in the mail from the state that gets signed by Mr. Rea, and then that contract. It's a reimbursement, so they'll provide us $50,000 up front, and then everything else is reimbursed based on what we spend.
Okay.
Okay,
Great.
next question.
Thank
Did you have another one?
Nope, I think that answers it. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Commissioner Kleinfeld.
Thank you, Chair. Okay, so the increase in intergovernmental up to 473 is directly related to the increase in supplies and services, correct?
Correct.
Okay. I'm going to go back to the conferences and training for just a second, because I also have last year's budget, which goes back to 2018. And I should start keeping every year, but so in 2018, the actual was 19, and in 19 it was 22, long before COVID, obviously. And then you had projected out from last year's budget, you had 26, 26, 26, 26. And then this year, the 21 budget is 26, which was the actual, and then 22 goes 47, 47, 47, 47. So it's not just a one-time increase because there's a conference in Hawaii or something. It's a significant increase for all the years to come. So something's changed, and it may be that you're training more people, but something changed other than the location of a conference.
Correct. So
Okay.
it's 9 people. It's it's a spring conference and a fall conference in Michigan, and then the national conference.
So
And-
did you increase the number of people? Is that what
Yes.
changed?
No, before, only one person would go to the national conference.
So
One.
that was the change, was
Yes.
the number of people?
9, yes.
Okay.
So what we did is we figured out how much is it for a hotel versus, and because I don't know what those locations are going to be in the next few years, they're not going to be in Michigan and they're not going to be in Cleveland. So it could be Atlanta, could be Florida, could be Texas, could be California. But the opportunity to get trained and to get more training and to get more advanced training, I need to have that ability to offer that to my people who are growing, especially my newer employees.
I mean, I'm okay
Yeah.
with that. I just knew there was something more that changed than depending
Yeah.
on where the location was.
Right.
And it's a significant change and it goes all the way out.
Correct.
So it's the number of people that you're sending. That's all I needed to know. Thank
Okay,
you.
thanks.
Thank you, Chair.
Commissioner Matuzak.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a question about the vehicle. Is that under the capital outlay number that went from 16 to 66?
What page are you on?
I'm on D23.
Capital outlay.
I'm just trying to figure out where you put the vehicle.
Yes, that's where it is.
Okay, that's what I thought. All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Laura, so you said you're getting 3 grants?
Two. I get a small grant for $1,200, and that's for taxes, and I just put that in my millage money because it's to pay for paper.
Okay.
That's pretty insignificant compared to the other 2 grants. So the other grant is an IRS grant.
So is that the revenue that comes in on the Veterans Grant Fund under intergovernmental?
Is that
correct?
295? Is that 29, which, okay.
It's under that fund. I'm just curious if there's 473,000 there.
No, the 473,000 is the state grant. I'm not sure where he put the IRS grant.
Yeah, it's D49. It's
It
the
is?
same one, yes.
It's D49, okay.
So it's
So
all,
it's 2 different grants,
but that's the collective total of it.
correct.
Okay, and then you said the supplies and services line item there in that fund is used for what again? Like you said advertising, and I'm just wondering if it is advertising, wouldn't that be under contract services? Isn't that how it was done in the past? No?
No. He's saying no, so. See, I have a breakout. My sheet has a breakout, then this all condenses it to like
We're looking
one
at more or
page.
less the summary.
Yeah,
Yes.
this has been budgeted in the past out of supplies and services as well.
It has, okay. Okay, I think all my other questions were asked. We're still in the first round. Commissioner Van Sickle.
Thank you, Chair. I think training's a good thing. Is the training going to yield a certificate or other kind of documentation for the people who take it?
It's accreditation. We have to maintain CEUs to keep our accreditation with the VA, to be able to do claims for the VA.
Okay, so
it's
they're not
ours.
advancing like to a higher level or anything, they're just maintaining what they have?
Yes and yes. So there is more advanced training, so we can basically try cases in front of the judge, and there is more advanced training. And I'm hoping my folks that are just recently hired that plan on staying for 10 years, go ahead and it's a 3-year training class.
Can people take the advanced training and job hop with that?
Say that again?
Can people who take the advanced
job
training
hop?
and advanced job hop out of the county employment and into some other employment?
Not anywhere else in the county, but they could go and work for the VA. They could also work for a different county doing the same accreditation job.
Okay, thank you.
So basically, to explain it, me, VSO, Veteran Service Officer, there's VSOs in 63 of the 83 counties.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, seeing no other speakers, please vote. Thank you, Laura.
Thanks.
Motion passes 10-0.
Okay, next item is Health and Community Services. Need a motion to receive and file.
So moved. Support Song.
Made by Romano, supported by Song. And JP, I believe you're speaking on this?
Yeah. No, that's fine. Afternoon, Commissioners. Appreciate the opportunity to speak here on behalf of the Health and Community Services Department here within the county. Currently, as you will see, as the budget is projected, we are pretty much holding the line. I believe in totality, we're looking at a cost savings of nearly $67,000 to the county bottom line, and we will continue to support the inspiring work that's going to be detailed by the umbrella organizations under HNCS, which is the Health Department, Macomb Community Action, and also our good friends in Michigan State University Extension. Mr. Chair, I yield to any questions.
Thank you, JP. If the motion maker can adjust this, I'm sorry, I just flipped my agenda, and I noticed we have the Health Department, Macomb Community Action, and MSU Extension. We can put these all together.
And Mr. Chair, if you would like, I could yield my time to the directors if that's appropriate, sir.
Yep. We'll start with Health and Community Services first, though. Commissioner Song, did you make that motion?
No, I didn't.
I seconded it, but that's
I'll
fine.
amend my motion to include all three.
Thank you, Commissioners. Commissioner Matuzak.
This is a more general question and relates to this group of budgets as well as the capital outlay budget.
Yes, sir.
It's okay. We're talking about reevaluating the building and how we sort of offer this umbrella of services and rethinking that a bit in terms of a more centralized contact intake, if you will. I'm hoping we move in that direction.
I would refer to it as a client advocacy model, but yes, I
There you
understand where you're
go.
going.
Whatever you all call it, the client advocacy model. Because as someone who's been going out and talking to community groups, I sort of wanted to hand them something so they could find chore services and all of those things. And I ended up with an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper with all kinds of different phone numbers on it. And it's like different addresses, different phone numbers, different. It seems to me we can do better and be more efficient by bringing those together with whatever it is you called that thing, and centralizing at least the intake of these things so that it's one-stop shopping, whether you need food or veteran services or immunizations. And so I'd like you to speak a little bit about how these various budgets and the capital outlay budgets work towards that.
So Commissioner Matuzak, I could probably take actually facilitate a master class on that subject, but in a quick summation of what we're aspiring to do here, we like to refer to the VERC as alphabet soup. Good luck figuring out what door you go through and what service that you get and everything. We understand that that is not the most optimal and welcoming environment for anyone that needs any of the sensitivity of services that we can provide. In the candid and frankly inspiring conversations that I've had with Ernest, Andrew, and Ed is the realization that we can do better. Not only to provide for that front-edge triage so we can really get the whole spectrum of services that an individual, their family, or their friends may need, but ensure that we have stewards throughout the process. The chief objective for looking at the utilization of the ARP funds into the future is to develop that client advocacy model that when there is that initial intake, whether it is by a centralized office, a group of social workers, or an interconnected network of skilled individuals that currently work in with Macomb County, we have strategic touch points where if someone comes to us to get into a WIC program, we need to ensure that that individual is aware of the full spectrum of early childhood development services that we have. Do you know that your child can be enrolled in Head Start? Do you know that your child has the ability to access other mental health services, things of that magnitude, should the family or child need? Same type of side on the candid services that we're also looking at from the Office of Senior Services. 1 in 4 county residents is of a retirement age. We are the 50th eldest county in the country. There are 3,100 counties in the United States, and we rank as 50. These are monumental demographic factors which should alter the course of our community service, and we've started those conversations not only post-pandemic, but understanding that we have a generational pool of money to be that transformational spark for us moving forward. But I think you're absolutely correct here, as was brought up a little bit earlier by community mental health. It's great that we have one number now, and I think those are the arenas where we very much want to ensure that we're putting the resources towards the staff so that we can have those strategic pass points.
And this budget, this collection of budgets that we do separately, they're moving in that direction?
It not only is moving in that direction, but I can assure you that that work is aspired to every single day within each one of the 3 divisions. I can say for myself, being the steward of that division through the Office of County Executive, the 3 individuals that are going to speak to you today do a masterful job of connecting on these programs and even expand to include OSS, to include workforce development, our friends at Community Mental Health, and all those through the service industry. They also do an impeccable job of working with our municipal partners, our philanthropic partners, and then our regional philanthropic community too, whether it be the United Way for Southeast Michigan Community Foundation and the entire lot of organizations that are impacting those throughout our community.
Thank you.
Really appreciate the question.
Commissioner Romano.
Thank you, Chair. You did an excellent job. You answered my questions already from Commissioner Matuzak. Thank you.
Commissioner Morano, can I ask if you started the stopwatch? Sure.
I believe he did.
He always does.
Well aware of that.
Commissioner Song.
Thank you, Chair. Just in general, and I'm flipping back and forth here, so my apologies. I'm a little confused here. Looking at the general fund with the personnel.
Excuse me, is your mic on?
It's not. Thank you. Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, now you can. I'm just looking at the personnel that jumped up to $255,000. Which department can I find the increase in the amount of personnel for this? So this is the general fund C40.
It actually decreased, Commissioner.
Decreased.
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, you're right. Okay, so it actually increased from 2020. That's what I was looking at. So are we losing personnel then?
Yes.
I mean, we hired a bunch of people and now
we have not
balancing out?
No, we have
or-
not hired anyone.
Okay,
in
so what is this increase in the personnel for this year from 2020 and then decreasing to 2022?
Your budget versus actual.
Yes.
That's the budget if those positions were filled.
Okay. Okay, I see. So those positions are not filled?
That is correct.
Okay. All right, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
So just some clarity, JP. So
Yes.
we have one manager / supervisor in this department,
That is correct,
correct?
Mr. Chair.
And then previously, we had one manager / supervisor and one professional support.
Correct.
Okay. Okay. Answers my question, too. Okay, seeing no other questions, we're going to move on to the Health Department.
Andrew's doing a great job. You should approve it, guys. Thank you.
It's a good lead-in for you, Andrew.
Yeah. Thanks, JP.
So we'll do the budget first, Andrew, and then I guess we can talk grants secondary. Is that good?
Sure. Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon, Commissioners. With me today is Patrick DeTine, our Financial Manager, and Chris Willett, our Deputy Health Officer, who I think you met last month at our Health and Human Services Committee. For our budget going into next year, what we're looking at doing is expanding our maternal health infant program. And this is a very special program to us under our Family Health Services. We've already had an existing nurse-family partnership program, and that has done an outstanding job of reaching our families, especially our mothers, our first-time mothers, with their family and providing health support for better health outcomes. The limitation there is exactly that, it's first-time mothers. What this expansion of this program, which we call MyHIP for short, which would be the expansion of our field services under our Family Health Services program, which is why we're asking for 6 FTE positions to expand that program would be to expand that service to our families, not just to first-time mothers, but the rest of their children. As you can imagine, and if you've had children yourself, there's can be vast differences between your first child and your second child with health needs, different health support, pregnancies. Pregnancies are not always the same with mothers, and they need additional support. This is something that we've really wanted to do for quite some time, and I think we have an opportunity to finally do that this year, and would like to expand that. So that accounts for our major difference in our budget this year and our change, but I think it's well worth it, well spent.
Okay, first speaker is Commissioner Brown.
Thank you. Related to that program, what's the eligibility requirements? How many people do you think you can serve, and what's some of your parameters of that program?
Yeah, we're working really closely with our division director, Cheryl Woods, who's over family health services, and that's where this program would be. Currently, she's researching that in terms of numbers. We don't have exactly a forecast of how many would qualify. We could get that to you if you'd like that detail, Commissioner.
Yeah, well, just curious to know, because a lot of mothers out there, right? And we need to know how much of an impact we're going to make doing that versus, somebody. These are probably services that are going to people that don't have health insurance, I would assume. Or that is
correct. So we have the ability for Medicaid reimbursement here. So there could be some future revenue driven for this program as well. So Medicare and Medicaid would be accepted as well.
Well, your department gets into the various communities and nooks and crannies of the county that need the help, and so I'd be curious to see where it's targeted, just out of curiosity's sake, where they're going to target the program. And good job of finding the money, or we'll help you if you do it as well, probably. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Matuzak.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a question under the revenue licenses and permits. What does that represent?
So our license and permits for revenue is generally mostly out of our environmental health. So it would include food service licenses, septic permits, well permits, evaluations under that division of environmental health. They make up most of our revenue there for license and permits.
Thank you. Thank you,
You're
Mr.
welcome.
Chair.
Commissioner Zinner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hello, everyone. Thank you.
Hello.
So I would assume that, well, I don't know really. That's my question. Do you start with these mothers prenatally? Are you called or referenced while they're in the hospital, after they come home? How does this all start?
Yeah, and that's where our great relationships with our community partners, with referrals. So these families, and through advertisement and word of mouth and different ways that we can advertise the program to get it out there. So it comes in a number of ways, but a lot of it is through referrals and people finding out about our services, telling others about our services as well. We also have different types of community outreach events to gain awareness of the community as well. For those mothers and families, much like we do our other programs that support the other populations and communities that we serve.
So this sounds to me like something that would have been under community action before this started. Am I wrong? Or I know obviously this is a new program. Was there a need for this apparently, or how did this all get started?
Are you talking about? Are you referring to the MyHIP program specifically, or in general our field nursing public health services?
Well, this particular program.
Okay, I'm not sure if it's under community action, but in terms of what?
Yes, because I mean, community action, they just do just everything. I mean, they do.
Right, we work very closely with community action as a partner.
Yes, that's what I'm wondering about, because maybe they don't do this exactly, but they...
This would be specifically a health health support,
Right.
nurses going out, giving health advice to mothers and families, and doing those assessments and recommending proper care. What do we recommend in terms of nutritional benefits, things like that.
So when was there found to be a specific need for this? Because there's always been.
I think a lot of our families through nurse-family partnership, where we go out, and we have a really good relationship there with our families, and they would say, hey, can you come out and do the same thing that you did before for my first child? And we're limited there. And so this is an opportunity that we can bridge that gap. So it's a lot of it is feedback from the community themselves
Okay.
of why there's a need.
So are you suggesting then that there's less financial help for some people, or is there less family help than there was years ago possibly, or connection? Or?
Commissioner, I can't speak to necessarily the financial help
Yeah.
because it's kind of getting into probably more other areas and other departments. I think there's definitely a need for the health support, the public health support, and that's what this would do. We would be able to go out and provide to those communities of need, families of need, that might not necessarily be able to find a pediatrician or are worried about the costs associated to that or going to an OB for healthcare services. So this is a chance to reach those people and really improve those health outcomes. We know the earlier we can get and educate people, the better and healthier they are later in life.
Well, I know people who are very poor financial resources, and they don't always have choices for physicians. So this.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Commissioner.
Commissioner Kraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Andrew, team, thank you. Quick question. I'm looking at the one-pager executive summary with the 6 FTEs and the funding of those FTEs. That's not a grant, right? Is that in health code, or where does that money come from the state?
So that's through local stabilization dollars, that fund that comes from the state. So that's specifically those where that's funds. So it's not necessarily a grant, but it's funds that are coming from the state.
Okay. Is this new? Is that why we're adding the 6 now? Has this existed before? What's the history on this?
Started in 2019.
Here, we'll let Patrick go.
The first year that we received it was at the end of 2019. The first year that we received it was at the end of the 2019 year.
Okay. And is this something that will continue?
For the foreseeable future, yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Wallace.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to follow up with what Commissioner Zinner was saying, and I just think that this would be an awesome program. I know I have 2 daughters. My first one, super healthy. She's 20 now and really has never had an issue. My 16-year-old, born with jaundice and just has not stopped having issues. And my husband was in Afghanistan, so there was no one, for me to really reach out to. We weren't on any assistance, with WIC or someone I could call and ask the questions. So for you to be listening to the community, I think, is key, and this would be a great program for those that are already receiving assistance and for those that just have questions because you don't know what to do with that other kid that just happens to have all these issues, and you just don't know what to do and don't want to keep calling the doctor over and over. But I think that this would be great, and I'm completely in support of it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner.
Couple questions, Andrew. Just looking at, talking specifically general fund. So you have some personnel changes going on. With the medical examiner, you have is it a half FTE change there? What is that specifically for as a professional support?
Just due to the amount of cases that are coming in the paperwork, cremation permits, burial permits, there was a need just because they've grown so much, and services have grown so much. there was a need for that clerical professional
So is that
support.
another part-time individual, or is that 2 full-times?
It's a MEI, what we call a medical investigator, part-time.
Okay.
So that person would be able to assist with cases going out to the scenes.
Okay. Just looking at your budget, like in previous years, like I was even looking back at like 16, where your budget and your actuals were pretty much in line exactly. And now, you know, your revenue is less than your expenditures consistently. Obviously, you've got more personnel changes here. That's a big part of it. Where do you see any more revenue coming in your department at all, anywhere? I'm just looking at licenses and permits. That's actually gone down over the course of 4 years based on your budget. Is that something that you see going forward?
I actually see that number probably increasing. How much, you know, will it get back to 2019 levels? It possibly could. What we thought would happen is there would be a drastic effect of the pandemic on restaurants and businesses in general. That just wasn't the case. We had 98% of our food restaurants renew their license and pay their license fees. We thought there'd be a drastic decline in that. We never saw that, and I think it spoke to probably how many were able to do alternative services and also survive. It was very tough for them, so I'm not trying to glaze over that. But they were able to make it and survive, and we are very busy with new septic permits. What did happen, it seemed like during the pandemic, is people thought about moving, building new homes, or increasing their homes in Macomb County. So we almost saw record numbers of septic permits coming through. So I think that's going to be reflected in years to come with that construction.
So specifically in that line item, then, just so all the commissioners are aware, what types of licenses and permits is your department specifically allocating in that line item? The restaurants, you said, septics,
Right.
What else?
That's predominantly it.
That's okay.
It's septic and food inspections.
Okay.
And wells.
And then your charges for services, what does that line item represent?
Patrick, I don't know if you want to.
Yeah, that's all of our insurance billing in our clinic. It's cremation permits out of the medical examiner's office. Fees, for self-pay instead of insurance when a person comes into the clinic.
Okay. We're on round 2, Commissioner Zinner.
Thank you, Chair. Director, I've had over the years talking to different young mothers, probably young mothers more, or they've said to me, in a situation where probably their first child, but it could be any child because each child can be different, as we know. I've spoke to the doctor. My child doesn't seem to be taking the formula well, or they spit up a lot, or they vomit, or whatever. And I would say, well, did you tell the doctor? And the doctor said, yes, this is the best formula. Or they may not have had a choice on doctors, which is very important. And they've gone back and they said, try it some more, or whatever. In these situations, I would assume that who's really in charge of the child, the parent or the doctor? Because you're dealing with the government now, right? I mean, if the parent's really concerned about something and the doctor isn't responding, the person who goes out to the house, is the parent still really in charge of their child?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think, I can speak to our services that we provide in the
Yes.
field, and our staff do a tremendous job of, we really practice education, and it's not forced, and nothing is forced or coerced.
Yes.
It is simply presenting factual data to our families and letting them make the best choice for their families.
Yes.
And we've always done that.
Thank you very much. It's comforting to know that, and think that sometimes people don't have a choice, and they don't feel they do. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Commissioner.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner. One more question, Andrew. Just looking at your personnel counts, obviously with the pandemic and everything that's gone on, I see a lot of changes in personnel, just shifting around. Did you reorganize a lot of these internal departments? And can you just talk about that briefly? Because, I mean, I don't think I've seen a budget where, you know, one line item goes up 4 FTEs, one drops 2 FTEs. You just got them all over the place.
Yeah, I understand the comments, Commissioner, very much. And we did. We really wanted to reorganize our positions to where they made the most sense. So, for example, we had 2 epidemiologists that were under administration. Well, they probably belong under communicable disease, and that's what we did. We made those changes to shift some of those positions where they made the most sense. Our epidemiologists, since the beginning of the pandemic, have been working under the program, so it makes sense to make that change in the books as well to reflect accurately, you know, where those positions are actually at. And so I think that was the intent of this. So I apologize for the confusion, but I think it was something that we want to do as an organization.
Okay. Thank you for the explanation. Seeing no other speakers, looks like we have grants for you as well, under D36 through D39, and then D5 through D6.
The biggest change with our grant programs would be under our expenditures for supplies and services, and this is directly related to our qPCR testing. I did this presentation, our beach presentation, and this is where that's reflected. This is where we want to go for the future of beach testing, but there's a cost associated, and that is reflected to that grant as well.
Okay. Commissioner Brown.
And the, want to get my page, hold on. There's a item of conferences and training in that section. I just saw it a minute ago.
So there's a specific...
There's a bump of it, it's like doubled. So 30,000, or is that 30, go back and find my page here.
He's probably talking about the 219 grants. We were talking on the 27. You were addressing D, and he's probably...
Yeah, I'm looking for the, yeah, page D5. Under the Special Revenue Fund detail for conference and training. Second line, oh, excuse me, supplies and service, no, that's the wrong page, it's the wrong spot.
From 19.
Lost my spot.
That's 1900 to there.
Yeah, no. Well, go ahead, I'll find it and I'll come back. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
That line item,
Yeah,
it
D5,
it does
yeah.
double, Commissioner, if that your supplies and services under page D5.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It just is
Commissioner,
a
that's the key.
substantial bump, so I was wondering what's,
Those are that is the supply and services for the qPCR testing for beaches.
The beach testing?
To run those samples through qPCR, the cost.
oh, that was the additional, more expensive testing to get more better, accurate, timely data.
Yeah.
Totally support that. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thanks for letting me know that.
Okay, I do not see any other speakers for Health Department under grants. So I think you guys are good. Next is going to be Macomb Community Action. Thank you.
Thank you.
Which will be, I know Ernest is here. And we'll start off with the September 30th funds, Ernest.
Yes, hello, Commissioners. Well, as you know, this has been quite the incredible year for Health and Community Services. Our budget really reflects that. You'll see, as Commissioner Matusek mentioned, oftentimes I'm looking at a couple of years ago and years into the future. Certainly we have a big bump here. In general, the bottom line is our budget's about the same. If you take out all the CARES and COVID funds, all the tremendous increase we have in federal and state resources to respond to the pandemic, our general operating fund's the same here. We've moved a couple positions around, administrative support, Our weatherization program has increased, and the federal government has indicated that weatherization and energy optimization will continue to increase. So we added an energy optimized position there. But other than the CARES funding, it is a generally flat budget. And so I wanted to point that out before we jump into it, because I know the numbers are bouncing all around up here. A lot of that's related to our SARA assistance. I'm pleased to report we have processed over 2,000 coronavirus emergency rental assistance applications. Over $15 million we've got out to landlords and tenants. We have over $35 million more in process. So that's one of the incredible things you can see between the lines here. Not only have we continued our operations, continued to meet an increased demand for food and emergency financial assistance, continued our homelessness prevention and rapid rehousing efforts, continued all of the great work we do with Head Start amidst school closures and exposures. But we've also administered a tremendous amount of additional money related to the coronavirus, whether it's federal or state resources. And I'm glad to point out some of the in-between the lines here on these budgets and answer any of your questions in specific.
Thank you, Ernest. Commissioner Song.
Thank you, Chair. Ernest, you mentioned that you guys awarded $15 million in rental assistance, and you have about $35 million left for, is that for the next fiscal year, 2022, or through the end of the year?
That's right now currently in our queue. And that's part of we have 3 pots of funding for the coronavirus emergency rental assistance. The county itself received 2 directly, SARA 1 and SARA 2 from the Department of Treasury. In addition, MISTA, the Michigan State Housing Development Authority, has its own SARA funding, which we're also helping to administer. So right now we have processed 2,000 applications, we have 4,000 more, and we expect to continue to receive more. So if all goes well, that would be within this calendar year, certainly within this fiscal year, and we'll continue to expand and respond to the needs.
Okay, that kind of answers my next question, is that do you see if there's any barriers to people applying for the rental assistance, or if you think there's more outreach that needs to be done? And then I think there's, like the application, you almost have to be like behind on your payment in order to qualify for the rental assistance.
There are a couple nuances there. We are already having people apply for a second time. So, people who are in hardship and we help them pay off 8 months of past due rent, we've been paying 3 months of future rent if they're in a financial situation where they believe they're going to need it. Because if you haven't paid your rent for 8 months, you're behind on your utility bills, you have a shut-off notice, and you're not going to be able to make rent next month, it doesn't do us or you any service to just pay your rent behind and have you go through another application process. So we often pay into the future a couple months in advance, which again, the landlord returns to us, and we get returned funds if they end up paying that. You do not have to be behind to apply for it. However, if you're in a situation where you're not going to be able to pay months in advance, we can only give you 3 months in advance. So oftentimes people are waiting, partially because if you're behind on your rent, you have a shut-off notice, you're behind on your bills, the credit cards are racking up, you have a whole lot to deal with. And so people naturally tend to wait until it becomes more of an issue. We have a lot of people waiting until they have an eviction notice. We certainly don't want that happening. We have more flexibility than ever. We've done landlord-specific outreach. Believe it or not, we have some landlords that won't participate in the program. We have some big property management companies that are multi-state property management companies that said it's against advice of corporate counsel to receive any of this funding. So there are some barriers that are out of our control. But we help people whenever we can, wherever they're at, whether or not they're behind yet or not.
Got it. Thank you. Thank you so much, Chair.
Commissioner Wallace.
Thank you, Chair. Hi, how are you?
Good, thank you.
First, I love Sarah. She has become my best friend, me and my tenants. So, first question I have is for community development. I know you have done some awesome things in the past, and I was just hoping you could let us know some things maybe that's coming or you expect to change for 2022. I saw the budget did go down a little, and I know that's, things change.
Yeah.
So is there anything that we can expect?
If you're referring to the CDBG funding, the Community Development Block Grant funding, again, part of the nuance across this budget is we've received additional one-time coronavirus-related funding from HUD. And so in some cases, some of the projects were funded and prioritized through the CV funding, which left some of our regular CDBG funding unutilized. You'll see in some of these budgets, when you look at 2019 or 2020 actual, and you see a $3 million level, and then you see these $12 million levels,
Right.
it's because we receive 3 to 4 years of grants at a time.
Okay.
So we have to show to budget as if we used all of the funds available in a given year.
Okay, that makes sense.
But every year, we usually use about a third, because we get a 3-year grant. We use about a year at a time. So that's sort of a false increase as you see it there. But I can say that we've continued to use CDBG. The minor increases in some of our standard funding is because we received one-time coronavirus funding. The best use for the county funding was for us to use these funds that are on the table one time only, to make sure in real terms the county gets more money, all the money possible to serve residents in need. So that has led us to delay some standard funding and utilize those one-time coronavirus pots of funding first. However, with these 3-year fundings, even if we were $200,000 or $300,000 lower this year, we have a 3-year window to make that up and utilize those funds. So we do anticipate to utilize those. I can tell you just this week, we received the CDBG applications from all of the municipalities in the county. We have a great team that encouraged innovation and creativity, and I'm pleased to say we have a full budget proposed from all of the municipalities.
Awesome. My next question is about Head Start. I've been asked about the teachers. Is there a teacher shortage for Head Start?
There is a teacher shortage across early childhood education in the nation, in the
general
state,
teacher
and certainly in the region. Part of the challenge with early childhood specifically is categorically the children cannot be vaccinated. We know that they just came out with a recommendation for 5 to 11, which makes K through 12 a safer environment.
Right.
So also it's a competitive environment. The more shortages you have of early childhood education teachers, the more demand and competition there is. We're seeing people offer $3,000 bonuses to attract some of our teachers to their early childhood education programs. So it's important that we be mindful to the environment we're in, and unfortunately, this larger dynamic of early childhood education is impacting some of our ability and our capacity.
Okay, and one last question about the Family Resource Center, and maybe Commissioner Zinner, you could help me if I mess this up. But we were kind of going back and forth about maintenance, custodial, something like that.
Sure.
And I was under the impression that the school would not be taking back that responsibility. So it was kind of a question that was brought up, and I'm glad that you're here because I wrote it down in my notebook to ask you, and I never called.
Okay.
So maybe you could guide us.
It's a pretty straightforward answer here. So traditionally, Mount Clemens Community Schools had provided custodial at the Family Resource Center. In the past years, Mount Clemens Community Schools outsourced it from their own employees to a third-party firm. That third-party firm then serviced the Family Resource Center. Then we transitioned from that third-party firm. They were having some staffing issues, and the county said, why use the district or the third party if you're okay using our own custodial? Okay. So we're looking to bring it under our own facilities and operations to make sure we have control and stability, and that because a district is choosing to use a staffing firm that has inconsistent staffing, that it doesn't negatively impact our facility.
Okay, that sounds good. Thank you, Chair. Thank you.
Commissioner Matuzak.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hi, Ernest. Great job with the rental assistance. It's been a big concern of mine, as I've expressed many times. So you're doing a bang-up job there. A couple of questions. Charges for services. What do we charge for?
In general, the charges for services are usually a cost share representation. So in many of our grants, we provide the service free regardless. But we offer a cost share option for beneficiaries of the service. For instance, the lawn and snow program, right? If you're in our lawn and snow program, we're going to cut your lawn and plow your driveway when we're in the snow, period, no cost. But we do accept a cost share donation. If you want to give me $5 to mow your lawn, it costs more than that. But by collecting a small cost share from many residents, it helps us provide increased service.
All right. I'm just sort of curious about the trend here. In 2019, it was a little more than 8 million. 2020, it's 7. I don't really count that. It's weird
Oh,
here.
what page are you on, Commissioner?
I am in our book D30.
Oh, D30, okay, let me get there. You're looking at the charges for services?
Charges for services, then it jumps to 10, and then in the
Yeah.
22 budget, it's down to 6.
Yeah,
I'm just sort of wondering about this up and down.
in general, I can tell you, if you look at the past year, that's sort of what we're looking at in the future. So you see it equalize back out to about 7.4, 7.80 in the future. So we're looking to be stable, but we're trying to reflect what we've seen as a trend. So we saw an increase of service, we had an increase in funds, we see an increase in those currently. And so that's sort of the step down projection we're hoping for, or
right.
anticipating.
Same sort of question under supplies and services. The 2021 amended is 38, which I assumed was some of the COVID issue. 2022, we're up to 42.
Yeah, that's right. And again, I'd look at the 2019 and the 2023 to see overall, we think our revenues and expenses are reflected there. But with the COVID-related funding, we have multiple year funding. The SARE funding goes till 2025.
Okay.
So because part of the time horizon they've given us for these grants, that's reflecting potential utilization to fully spend out those services. It could happen sooner. It could happen later. We chose to contain it sort of in those 2 years.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Commissioner Romano.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Under the revenue, the mortgage payments, the credit cards, the advancements and so forth, you ever get reimbursed for that?
Which page are you on?
I'm on the same page. I'm just, that's a generalized question because your statement, I'm sorry, you'd mentioned that when you help out particular people regarding their mortgage payments in default and the credit cards and just a lot of bills in general, and you reach out and help them out, you ever get reimbursed for that?
We do get donations.
Can we legally get reimbursed for that?
Not a reimbursement as such, depending on the grant program or service, but we often get donations. To a small amount. I mean, a couple $100,000 a year over our, $30 million program. A couple $100,000 is pretty small, but I might help you out, Commissioner, and you might decide to give a donation to help us help people when they need it. But oftentimes it's not the same as the cost share I was describing, where the cost share is paid back to a specific service to be dedicated to that service. We often just receive donations, but those donations we receive are often small, under $50 from individuals.
Just want to make sure so that the other commissioners are aware, when this program is instituted and this help is given, there's very stringent qualifications. You just can't apply and say, hey, I'm behind in 2 mortgage payments because I decided to go to the pony track and I need some help. So there's some very stringent qualifications in order for you to obtain these funds. So great job. I think it's something that people need, especially when this COVID hit. So I commend you for it. Thank you, Commissioner. That's all I have.
Yeah, just on that note, Commissioner, it's an important point. You are the eyes and ears across the county. When you hear some frustration about the SARE program, that's part of what you're hearing. We have to dot our I's and cross our T's, and that can take time. Everybody who's applied for emergency rental assistance is frustrated by how long it takes. That's the nature of making sure that we have an accountable program to the taxpayer and we're a wise steward of public funds. So I hope if you hear that, which I'm sure you're hearing, because it's taking longer than we want to process everybody, our trend's going up, but part of it is exactly that, Commissioner Romano. It's our safeguards.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Commissioner Zinner.
Thank you, Chair. Hi, Ernest. I know you told me before that the people that we are serviced like this, they're sent to you from the state. The state has gone through this. I believe you said that to me.
For the SARE program?
Yes.
We are utilizing the MSHDA platform. So both for our MSHDA dollars and our Treasury dollars, we opted to have one platform, and the state already set up a platform to process SARE applications. So we are using that for also our federal Treasury SARE funds as well.
Yes. I do have a question for you. First of all, how many people are in, I always think of it as the George Washington building. It's hard to, after all these years, to, the family services.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
How many employees?
Well, how many people are being utilized in that building now? Because do you still have was it Head Start in there?
Head
yes,
Start
I know
is in
you
there.
had the classes.
Head Start, early Head Start through a community partner. We have the Macomb Foster Closet doing
Yes.
great work in there. We had the Good Shepherd Coalition. They vacated. We have the Homeless Coalition as well.
Yeah, so it's still, you still have,
We have more tenants waiting to come in, I'll tell you, but during COVID and during some of our expansion, we're using some of those classrooms for extra office space for the
Yes.
SARA program. Part of it's related to COVID contingencies and social distancing.
yes, good, thank you. I have a question for you in regard to the vehicles. I think there were 2 vehicles
Yeah.
that you revamped
Yeah.
for the Head Start program
Sure.
in the summertime. Did you end up, how did you do with that? Did you find children, were there enough children to really utilize that through the
We're
summer?
still waiting on them. This is the nature of vehicles. It often takes us months to get them through purchasing, if not more. And then we purchase the vehicles. Once we secured them, we had to send them to be retrofitted for that mobile classroom. So I believe, I don't know if we know, I think we're still waiting on them. But I think we're getting ready to drive over to Indiana, if I believe, where they were retrofitted, and pick them up. So they're not yet deployed, but we're very excited to have them, especially with these classroom closures.
So they will not start even this fall. Well, we're into the fall, so.
That's right,
It won't
yeah.
be till the spring.
Well, no, they could, I don't know if we have an update. Gary, do you know?
We just got a bill for a transportation company to haul them here, and actually I contacted our fleet manager today to see if we had received them, and they knew nothing about receiving them. But we got bids for a delivery company to deliver the 2 vehicles, and they sent us a bill. I would have to look into it further to see if they're looking for prepayment before they'll pick up and bring us our vehicles, or what the item is, but the vehicles are done at the location where we had them done.
Mr. Cutler is our fiscal service manager, and
Yes.
as he said, it could be in November that we receive them, and we're certainly going to get them on the road as soon as we receive them.
Yes, yes, all right, thank you very much.
Commissioner Kleinfeld.
Thank you. You've made several references to donations individuals may give back
Yeah.
to us. Is there any requirement, like there is with the charity, that these donations are kept in separate funds and they're reported to anybody, or and how do we as a county account for those?
Our fiscal department, our finance department helps make sure that is all accountable. In general, of all of the operations of MCA, it represents a very small portion, other than the cost share, which we have specifically detailed there. With cost share, they have to be utilized for the program they were donated to. General donations, we do keep segmented out. Sometimes, for instance, if you write a donation during the letter carrier's food drive, or you write something and write food program, we make sure that's used only for food. But other than that, if you give us a general donation, we'll keep it out and make sure it's in its own line item.
I guess what I was trying to understand is you get a donation that can only be used for food.
Yeah.
Who physically takes control of that money? Where does that go?
It goes into our accounts with the county, as all of our funding goes.
Okay, all right, and you have separate accounts for and I know it's a very small amount.
Yeah.
It's just the type of revenue that is something that, from our experience, it's sort of an off the books. It's the
We have
kind of
nothing off the
revenue that an
books.
auditor
We have
wouldn't be
nothing off the
aware
books.
of.
Steve and Dave and Gary make sure that everything we have has
Okay.
an org code and is
And I'm
available
not
for
saying yours
review.
are off the books.
Yeah.
I'm saying it's the kind of
Yes,
revenue
that's
an
right.
auditor wouldn't know about.
That's right.
I've experienced that a couple of
Yes,
times.
yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Commissioner Van Sickle.
Thank you, Chair. We've had quite a change in where we were when everything was shut down to now, when possibly not but it seems like every business has a Help Wanted sign out there. How is that impacting these 4,000 applications you still have on the books? I would think that some people would be dropping off.
Absolutely. We are hoping that people get back to work. But if you get back to work, it doesn't mean you're going to be able to pay the $8,000 or $9,000 you owe for all of last year when you had an eviction notice and couldn't pay rent. What we saw during the recession of 2008 is a lot of people got back to work, but they had a court settlement against them for the rent that they owed. However, they couldn't collect that rent at that time because they didn't have money. So 5 or 6 or 7 years later, they got a garnishment unexpectedly for that rent they owed way back when. So part of what we're also doing is to make sure that the hardship of last year doesn't follow people into the future when they get that job and get back on their feet.
Are you seeing new applications now?
We are. Yeah, we continue to see applications, and I can't speak to, the hardship people are facing. All I can tell you is we have a lot of people who are struggling.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay, seeing no other speakers, I think we are all set, Ernest. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay, next budget is the MSU extension, which is budget pages D10 and 11. And we have Ed here to speak about that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Thank you for taking the time to hear from me today. I just want to highlight a couple of the programming achievements over the last year. We have continued with our partnership with the Macomb County Treasurer's Office to help assist those who find themselves facing a foreclosure crisis due to back taxes. We've been able to help about 100 people every year get access to Michigan Step Forward funds to be able to stay in their homes. We have continued our Gypsy Moth efforts across the county to help those communities who are struggling with infestations that pop up from time to time, providing educational resources and connecting them with spray vendors. We have continued to meet the needs of the youth in our community through our 4-H programming and also the needs of lower income families through our programs that serve audiences that qualify for federal assistance. Over the course of last year, when much of our programming was converted to virtual environments, we actually served approximately 70,000 people through engagement in our programs. The budget that you see before you, to go along with what Mr. Rea just said, and also what we just heard from Ernest, is virtually flat, with the exception of internal services costs, which have gone up fairly drastically. What you see represents about a 2.5% increase around operating costs. And so I am open to any questions you might have for me.
Mr. Chair, if I may hop in for one moment, sir, to supplement something that Mr. Scott said. Excuse me.
Yep, please.
Mr. Scott brought up the whole notion of the Gypsy Moth program in the county. I just want to applaud the efforts of Ed, Debbie, and Terry Gibb, who's not here. The efforts specifically this year with regards to the environmental staff of Michigan State University Extension saved us from a massive infestation that devastated surrounding counties. I think that effort should not only be applauded, but the work that they did to connect with our municipal partners and bring additional revenue into this program is a model that is now being duplicated in both St. Clair and Oakland counties. I think we've got an exceptional platform here to expand those efforts to ensure that we're advocating for the agricultural community and protecting the natural ecosystem. And all the credit goes to Ed, Debbie, and Terry on that front.
So much so that a person from Oakland Township called me, wanted to be annexed into Macomb County because their county was so just disregarded their issues with the Gypsy Moth program. So I said, come over and we'll sign the paperwork if you bring it to us. They have to petition actually it's a process, they can petition their government to the county to secede, and we could sign the paperwork and they could take them over and be part of Macomb County. So, who knows?
Commissioners,
hope they don't do their job. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for pardoning the interruption.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Scott, so how many people would you say you've actually physically encountered in this last year? Or is it mostly virtual? You said you kind of said that, but I mean.
Yeah. So this past year, the university instituted a policy whereby we ceased in-person programming with very few exceptions. So in 2020, coming into 2021, I would say we interacted with, through programming or one-on-one meetings or things of that nature, about 6,500 people. For context, in a typical year, it would be closer to about 35,000 people who participate in our programming or get resources from us in some form or another. And so we moved the majority of our programs, all of those programs that could be delivered virtually through things like Zoom or Google Meets, we very rapidly shifted our programming to be delivered that way. And in doing so, ended up encountering about 70,000, and this is Macomb County residents, so that's just for this county, about 70,000 people participating in our programs.
So you're saying that, so you didn't physically, so you're saying that was all done Zoom and that kind of thing? Because I know I remember seeing you on our
right.
our emails and stuff. So
the physical number would be that 6,500 number.
Mm-hmm. So I mean, apparently you've accomplished quite a bit and saved the state. So how much? I mean, I know you have your office over on Dunham. How much do you do the work in that office, or where do you work out of? I assume you work out of that office then.
Yeah, so we have an office location in the Verkulen building in Dunham. We also have an office location at the Thompson Family Resource Center. What is relatively unique about us as an agency within the county is that we are also connected to the larger university. So if a person approaches us or we notice a need in the community for a particular kind of resource, even if we don't have a person in our office who has that expertise, we can access that expertise through faculty or other research being done on campus. So a lot of our work was able to be completed virtually because of that communication network.
Do you do other projects for MSU also from Macomb County, or is that's your? Do you do other projects also?
Other projects?
Besides Gypsy Moss and other?
Yes. So MSU Extension has a whole host of programs and educational resources ranging from gypsy moth to nutrition programs aimed at people throughout the lifespan, to youth development programming, to financial literacy and financial coaching. We partner pretty closely with Macomb Community Action. So those folks who approach Macomb Community Action for things like utility assistance or rental assistance might also be referred to us to go through financial coaching and budgeting courses. I mentioned our partnership with the Treasurer's Office. We also have worked with the courts off and on over the years who refer adjudicated people to us for anger management or substance abuse and opiate abuse prevention courses. We do a number of things for the county.
So do you do that in the office at Verkulen, or how do you do that? Where do you do that from?
In normal times, much of it does happen at the office at Verkulen. We use the conference space and we, hold larger gatherings. And we are, back to that at this point. We've spent the last several months kind of ramping back up to doing in-person programming. But over the course of last year, much of that happened virtually.
Thank you very much, sir.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Chair.
Commissioner Matuzak.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was going to ask this question. Are we back now in person?
Yes.
Yay.
Yes. We are asking the public to visit us by appointment. To just kind of manage the flow of traffic. But programming is happening in person. We are meeting with residents in person. We're back in person.
Fabulous. My personal favorite service that you offer is when I show up with a plant and say, what's wrong with this?
Yes.
That's very helpful.
Yeah.
Identifying diseases, pests, or just what is this?
Yeah.
And should I pull it or leave it? It's very important. And I guess I just wanted to say the two programs that I think are most important are working with the Treasurer's Office to help people stay in their homes. The more people we have staying in their homes, the stronger our community is in general. And I think that's a really valuable. People get in trouble because they're not good. They've never learned about budgeting and finance and all of that stuff. And so that's a really valuable service. The other service is obviously the gypsy moth. When I wake up at 5:30 in the morning and I hear the little plane buzzing over where I live, I'm very grateful for that. I inherited a house my grandfather built up north, and I went up there and it's like, what happened? And what happened was the gypsy moths moved down the street and really decimated the entire area and large swaths of that county. And people were like, what do we do? And I said, well, I know what you do. You get your extension office to develop a program about this. So I'm really pleased. I know that it's been a bit disappointing over the last year or so. The 4-H kids haven't been able to do their thing. The county fair comes and goes. That's sort of disappointing. That's often the face of 4-H. But the other programs you do, helping people stay in their homes, helping people learn finance and budget, is really critical, I think. So I'm very happy to see a budget here that's like very flat with a downward trend. Yes. I'm excited about that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Commissioner Kleinfeld.
Thank you, Chair. So both the MSU extension on D10 and the cooperative extension on D41, you see the fund balance dropping year after year after year. So for the D41, you started with 199, then 183, 152, 120, and we're down to 57. What happens? Are we just headed towards zero in both those situations, and what's the plan?
So the D41 number that you're referring to is actually dollars that the county had set aside specifically to address gypsy moth. They come back, their life cycle is such that they come back about every 10 years. They stick around for 4 to 6 years, and then the population tends to die off. And so where you see that number going down, that's where we have utilized some of those resources towards the gypsy moth program to pay for staffing to do surveying and connecting with the municipalities.
So does that mean at some point we will be doing another infusion to put it back up? Is that, I mean, once it gets down to zero.
Right. I hope so. I will be honest with you that this particular piece of this budget started before I came to MSU Extension, and there was a time when the county was doing an annual infusion of dollars into that fund in preparation for this. My assumption is that at some point in the future, we may need to revisit that to replenish it.
Okay, and then the same with MSU Extension D10. Again, the end of year fund balance goes 139, 135, 105, 76, 67. It's headed towards zero.
So that particular fund balance is dollars. Okay, let me rewind. I don't know if any of you were here for this. I wasn't even, but about 11 years ago, MSU Extension went through a restructuring. Prior to that time, it was Macomb County employees working within the MSU Extension Department delivering programs. And so if they did a program and charged a fee for it, those dollars would go into the county's accounting system. In 2010, I believe it was, MSU Extension restructured. And took over those positions so that now all of our work is done by employees of the university. And the dollars that you see there are dollars that were left in those accounts from that time period when, the dollars coming in were for programs done by county employees. So the dollars, when you see it go down, what they're being used for are things that continue the programming that you see. So environmental education, for example, we use a portion of that to support a part-time staff person who assists municipalities with understanding their water quality and septic systems. The general extension education, that supports expenses for the office that aren't covered by the general fund. It covers copier and equipment maintenance, things of that sort. We use some of those dollars to pay for postage and office supplies and such. The General Youth Development Fund that you see there, we use those dollars for scholarshiping youth.
I don't need an explanation. I'm sorry. I'm getting an explanation of how you're spending the money, and I appreciate that. We do have that on the next page. I'm watching a fund balance that's headed towards zero.
Yes.
So I'm asking what happens then? And so if you're telling me those programs go away, I'm fine with you telling me that.
Yeah.
I don't need an explanation of the programs. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be, I just want to get to the point of my question.
Understood. This particular fund balance, when it gets to zero, it's done.
When it gets to zero, those programs are over and done unless you make
No, the programs may continue, but this account will not. So this particular fund balance is not necessarily funding specific programs that will go away when the money goes away. It's supporting programs that exist. And when these dollars are gone, then we would seek other funding to help support those programs.
Would that other funding come from us?
No, not necessarily.
Not necessarily.
We seek grants or donors. Or
Okay,
other
and so in the first situation, you may make a request to us, and in the second situation, you're saying no.
No.
Which I'm not sure I understand, but thank you, Chair.
Yeah, I'd be happy to get together.
I guess,
and
I mean,
explain
if you
further.
remember, one of the commissioners a few years back just tried to take all the money away from MSU. Do you remember that?
I do.
He's not here right now. So, and I'm looking at these pages and I'm saying, well, this money goes down to zero. If you'd have said to me a couple years ago when that commissioner said, well, I'd like to take that money down to zero, I don't think those programs are worthwhile. You didn't say, well, that's okay. If the money goes down to zero, we'll still do the programs. So this I'm looking at, of course, I'm not looking at revenues here. So this page is a little different than what we usually have. We're giving you revenues that aren't listed on this particular page because you guys understand what I'm saying? We don't, above the expenditures, we don't have revenues listed right there. Am I the only one that's seeing this? I am the only one that's seeing? Okay,
Yeah.
okay. There's somebody other than me that's seeing it.
I will defer to the expert.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, in those special revenue funds, there's a small amount of revenues coming in on the December year-end fund. Then there is no revenues coming in on that September year-end fund. That's use of fund balance that you're seeing there, where the expenses are coming. If that's what you were.
Well, I guess I'm wondering, where is the money that we were putting in every year? I thought it was a couple $100,000 or something. Where is that? Because I don't.
That would be the fund balance number in those funds, which is what we're spending down right now, if I'm understanding the question correctly.
So we're not putting in money every year, right now, to MSU Extension?
No, not in these funds. You may be thinking about the general fund department, where we pay for the contract to MSU Extension, and that's a substantial sum, and that is
I
obviously
think that
funding the
is
general.
what we should be reviewing right now, guys. I think we're reviewing the wrong thing. Okay. All right, thank you. I'm not sure we're reviewing the right thing. Thank you.
Yeah, I would just, another point of clarification, the dollars you were talking about that were, looking at potentially being removed, that was from the general fund and from the dollars that typically
Okay,
come
we
to
need to
MSU. So
find
that's the
that. We
confusion.
need to find that.
Commissioner Romano.
Thank you, Chair. Commissioner Kleinfeld, I was the other commissioner that wanted to do away with that fund. Just so that I'm not taking credit for it, I was just making a statement. But however, there was almost $1 million in there that we were contributing each year. I think we still are. Neither here nor there. My question piggybacks on Commissioner Matuzak's with the gypsy moths, and I don't expect an answer from you now, but could we get a list of where you're spraying for the gypsy moths? I'm sure it's all in Macomb County because we're paying for it, but can we get a list when you have an opportunity? Appreciate that.
Yeah, I'd be happy to provide that.
Thank you. That's all I have. Thank you, Chair.
Commissioner Kraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We're just getting our ducks in a row over here.
Yeah, no problem.
Question for you. You were kind of your presentation abruptly ended last time you were here, and I have a programming question for you. I know you work with different departments in the county. You work with the treasurer for financial literacy and things like that. Are there plans to work with the health department, or is there a plan with the added beach testing and things like that going forward in terms of testing, monitoring the water?
So to my knowledge, there's not a specific plan in place. That is work that we do and could assist with. We provide soil testing for both residents and commercial, and that's something that I think we'd be happy to partner on.
JP jumped out of his chair, so he may tackle you to answer this.
Yes, Commissioner, Michigan State University is part of the Heart of Lakes Institute, and they do provide institutional support through Oakland University also.
Slow down. I'm just kidding. Thank you both. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
Okay, just to follow up on Commissioner Kleinfeld's point, the budget that she's speaking of is on C46.
Yes.
It's not listed on the agenda as when we're looking at today, but I think it should be. So, Ed, if you could talk about that one as well, maybe Steve, you could give some highlights on that. And then we'll take any questions on that one specifically. And that should address your comments, Commissioner.
It was the general fund department. You wanted the overview? Thank you. Yeah, the overview here is how you're looking at a recommended budget. And first of all, I'll start at the top here, page C46 and on the agenda packet, page 50. You're looking at a recommended 2022 budget of $1,334,000. Of that amount, I'll call your attention to supplies and services. $557,900 is just about entirely comprised of the MSU contract, which had a 2% increase in it, which is budgeted into that number in 2022. And then the cost allocation plan charges for those internal services. That's everything from our facilities costs to our costs for accounting services ran through finance, corporation counsel, HR, et cetera. That's the basis for that internal services expenditure going up. And as you can see, there's no additional FTEs being requested here between the 21 amended and the 22 recommended.
So, Steve, are these our employees or are these part of the contract? Can you just explain that?
The 5 positions are county employees.
They are. Okay.
Okay, Commissioner Kleinfeld?
Just to follow up for other commissioners, this is the page we were always looking at when we were doing this budget presentation, because this is where all the money is. I was looking at the other two, and things weren't making a lot of sense to me. So I don't have any more questions about it, though. Thank you.
Commissioner Brown?
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The internal services fee jumped from 10.5 to 27.5. What's going on there?
It's contract services.
Oh, contract services. Do you?
Yeah, I can.
Okay.
Internal services normally are costs billed to our departments. So what major?
Okay, so the contract services went from 10.5 to 27.5. Internal services went from 305.6 to 348.2. Are you asking about contract services or internal services?
Contract services, yes.
Okay, so the contract services line includes dollars that we use to pay for security at the Thompson Family Resource Center, as well as including a request for dollars that we would use to support AmeriCorps members to work in our office and help build our capacity.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Van Sickle.
Thank you, Chair. How do the 5 county employees support the MSU extension?
So they work as support staff for us. So within the office, they take care of all of our clerical needs. They assist us with scheduling of our programs and things of that nature. A friendly face when someone walks into the door. They're our support staff.
Okay. And so the $557,000 is mostly the MSU contract was stated?
Yes.
How many people does MSU supply toward the counties?
At this time, there are 24 MSU employees working in Macomb County.
They're not full-time, though.
Yes, they are. We have one part-time person. So the dollars that you see there that come to MSU, they represent an investment. We use them to pay for staff, but we also provide many additional staff who are here in the county to provide services.
Well, I'm confused because our 5 county employees are, let's say, 400,000, and you're saying 24 employees for MSU are only like 1.5 times that. So they have almost 5 times as many employees for 1.5 times the budget?
So
I'm missing something.
So this amount does not represent 100% of the costs for us to provide employees to do work in Macomb County. So this is an investment. It represents an agreement and a partnership between Macomb County and MSU Extension. And then the exchange is for the price of what for you might be 4 or 5 employees. We're able to provide 24 employees as well as access to the wider network for Michigan State University Extension.
Okay, so you're saying that MSU kicks in for part of the support of those 24 employees?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Commissioner Wallace?
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to say quickly that on the Macomb website, it gives a list of where the location of spraying for the gypsy moths. And if you click on the city or the township, it gives you the map of where it was sprayed as well. That's it. Thank you, Chair.
Yes, thank you, Debbie. Just let me know that. Appreciate that.
Seeing no other questions, just one quick one from me. In regards to this contract, is this an annual contract? Is this a multi-year contract with MSU?
This one that we are currently under was 2 years, and this is the last year of it. So we'll be looking for a new contract. And I think that's the wrong language. It's not a contract. It's a budget administration agreement. So I think that makes a difference in the context here. So we have a budget administration agreement with the executive's office. So I'd be happy to share that or provide further information about that for you.
Okay. Seeing no other speakers.
I have a follow-up. I'm sorry.
Oh, I didn't see you there, Commissioner.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
A budget administration agreement, does that count as a contract for the purposes of coming before the board? Because it seems like...
I don't know. I would, does the budget administration agreement count as a contract?
It's a new terminology.
Yeah, we have not, in the time that I've been working with MSU, we have not. So I assume not.
So you're, if I can follow up here, Commissioner.
Yeah, you can
So
take it from here.
Are you saying that your current agreement ends in 2021 or ends in 2022?
It ends in 2021.
Okay.
December 31st.
So theoretically, we are approving this agreement going forward
Correct.
with this budget. Commissioner, you all set? Commissioner Song.
Thank you. And just to follow up to that question, because I'm confused now, because if the agreement ends this year, but there's still a forecast of 2022, 23, and 24, how does that work?
Well, we've been in partnership with Macomb County for over 100 years, and so I think the assumption is that we will continue to be, and so we continue to budget going forward. I would assume that if something were to happen to change that relationship, that would be reflected as an amendment to the forecasted budget.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, seeing no other speakers, thank you, Ed.
Thank you.
And waiting patiently for Martha Tiberia is Kevin Evans. Finally, right? No. I do apologize. We do need to vote on those items together because we did combine all those items under D. So please vote. Receive and file. E's next.
Motion passes 10-0.
Okay, so next is Martha T. Berry. So I need a motion to receive and file.
Motion is Zinner.
Made by Zinner, supported by Commissioner Wallace. Hey, Kevin, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Commissioners, for saving the most interesting conversation for last. Listening to John Maxwell, he said the biggest problem with communication is the illusion that it has already occurred. So we have a lot of confusion about what happened here, and please accept my apology for that confusion. For those that are new to the Commissioners, I'd like to just give a little bit of background as to what some of the structure we have so that you can understand moving forward what happened. We are a discretely presented component of the county as an enterprise budget, not an allocated budget, which means under an agreement under Public Act 280, our Human Services Board approves our budgets. And those revenue projections have been coming for years from our accountant through Plant Moran. When COVID hit, everything went kind of sideways. In addition, my accountant also had some health issues. So he was convalescing while he was preparing the budget for me, and when we were looking at revenue projections, the fluidity of what's been happening created a lack of communication between him and me. And I was not aware that that was in the budget because we've had increases in rates, we've had different kinds of funding, we've had a decrease in other revenues that we had. When I was looking at it at a whole and saw we were going to have a deficit, I thought it was appropriate. He had thought that the 0.5 mil millage had been approved last year and was put it in. So so I said, have we captured all of our revenue? He said yes, because it still seems short to me, and it is. It's dramatically short. So as you see in the budget, what comes before this board is something that surprised me too, and that is the 0.5 mil millage. So a little background on that. The building is the county's building, and under Public Act 280, I'm required by rule to make sure that I maintain everything regulatorily appropriate. So we had a discussion for a couple of years prior to COVID hitting about an expansion of services that we had to have. We also had some other issues which I won't get into because it'll muddy the waters. But we had a $4.2 million project that we had to have, and we were out of money because of some of the relationship issues that we had prior to that. So we had a pinch point, and we had talked for a couple of years about what can we do. And the previous board decided to approve a 0.1 mil millage, which is acceptable under Public Act 280 for the expansions of services or maintaining regulatory compliance with a county medical care facility. Some people ask, well, why would we support a nursing home? Well, our model is different in that we're not a not-for-profit or a for-profit. We actually, our number one referral source is from other nursing homes because they cannot take care of Medicaid residents. We're that safety net. So the county, over 70 years ago, developed this program here, and I have the privilege of serving you in that. However, you see the budget before you, and when Chair Brown called me and said, Kevin, did you ask for this to be in the budget? I said no. So I apologize for that because I didn't, but I also was not aware that that was part of the revenue cycle issue. Our census today is 177. Before COVID, it was 205, which is roughly $2.5 million different each year. So we have that issue. Additionally, we have significant cost that is put upon us by the state and federal government for testing and PPE, additional training on infection prevention. We have the reimbursement's actually quite fluid. We've been aggressive on finding other resources for actually billing for some of those tests that we're required to do, and we've gotten revenue for that. Now, as everyone in this room knows, costs are going up precipitously. Looking at the Consumer Price Index for goods and services, our paper products, our meats, our eggs, our milk are going up. Utilities are going up significantly. And then you look at the market basket, which Medicare does for long-term care skilled facilities, and that's pacing aggressively high as well. So, so you have the budget before you, and we have inside it a millage. And I believe that's what we're here to talk about, isn't it? So I believe that it would be very helpful for me to have that. As you can see, if we remove that from the budget, we are going to be cash strapped. And as you all know, and as I told Chair Brown, if I don't have that, it would mean that I would probably not be repairing the building and not paying some of my debt back to the county this coming year, so that I can make sure that I maintain services for our staff. And here we go.
So Kevin, just to be specific, so in the budget that we're looking at, the 1.3 million, is that what you're referencing to under the property taxes line item?
That's correct.
Okay.
And when I did the budget with Jeff, we had aggregated the revenues because I knew it was going to be short, and I was focusing on what we're going to be doing in terms of expenses during that time.
Okay, just wanted to be clear there for the commissioners. Commissioner Kraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Kevin, I'll go easy. What would this money cover? What would this take care of? What, does this fix something in the building? What does that cost cover?
Well, it actually replaces the money that we had to spend because we didn't have for that expansion, and so we would be using it for general purposes. But remember that we had $4.2 million project that the 0.1 mil had 2.8 of it. So we took, we emptied our fund to be able to pay for that, so we could maintain regulatory compliance, right? So that's what it would be doing, be replacing that money that we would have been using for things like OPEB and things like that. So yeah.
So I'm looking at the dollar amount, 1.3 million, and our total budget, as was all over the newspapers, was over $1 billion. I feel like somewhere in this budget, we can find $1.3 million without going to the residents with a tax. And I think that's something that we can work on with the administration or amongst ourselves as a board and with you, Kevin. But I'm not for taxing the residents for this specific issue. I want to look for it internally and see if we can find that somewhere in there. And I know our finance wizards back there have looked, I think. He's searching for the back of the room. But that's something that I think I personally would like to take a look at. I don't know if other board members would agree with me, but that's where I'm at on the issue, Kevin.
And I know you expressed it the last time we had this conversation, Commissioner Kraft, and I appreciate your candor on that.
The dollar amount's a little bit smaller this time. So
yes, sir.
That's helpful. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Zinner.
Thank you very much, Chair. I called Kevin this morning and spoke with him. I just asked how it was going, and he explained this to me. And I said, well, how does that break down? And he said it would be $4.50 per household one time this year. So I said, well, that's a cup of coffee. I mean, a Starbucks coffee. I don't drink Starbucks coffee, but I said, I don't think a household would mind buying, would mind $4.50 one time this year to help out Martha Teaberry. I mean, I just don't think they would mind. Some households maybe couldn't do that $4. Others would say, I'll give you a couple cups of coffee. I honestly don't think that's asking too much for Martha Teaberry for what they do there. I tried to chew the ear off of Steve the other day, and for the HVAC, which I don't think is going to happen. And so that's how I feel about it. It's just a one-time $4.50 cost. I think Macomb citizens will do it. Thank you, Kevin, and thank you, Chair.
Commissioner Kleinfeld.
Thank you, Chair. Okay, a couple of things, and I missed what you asked him because I was having technical difficulties trying to request to speak.
No, not you.
I know I frequently do that. So what was your question related to? Was it that that would be voted on at a different time, or?
No, Commissioner, I just added clarity that the 1.3 million that's listed here on the budget under the line item property taxes is specifically what Kevin is talking about.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so you did give us a heads up a while back that you may be coming to us.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner Kleinfeld. When we first were discussing this, we talked about the 4.2, in that it would be helpful to have the 0.1 mil, because that's the regulatory limit that the commission has to be able to do that in any given year. And then I said, I may come back to you after that, and that was before COVID. So,
no, I mean, I think
right,
recently
right.
it came up, and I don't remember you saying I may come back to you. I remember I thought at that time you said it was a one-time thing. Now, having said that, I'm not necessarily against it. That's just what my memory of what it was at that time was, a one-time thing. But recently, I believe at some point when you were giving your report in front of us, maybe this last time, I think you brought it up.
I did refer to it because, well, if you remember, Chair Smith said, Kevin, we're giving this to you today, do not expect another one. But that was, so then we had all of the American Recovery Act money coming in, and now we have more money coming in this year, next year. And I had put a presentation together and explained the context of what happened there. And really it is a decision that the commissioners need to make as to how they support Martha T. Berry and the seniors there. And so when all the money came in, I did put forth a capital plan that I have, which is about $13 million. And I said, if I have just the HVAC in it, that'd be great. But in talking with the executive office,
I'm really just trying to get a clarification.
I understand, but it was
of a couple
all in the
things.
Context of that. It was in that context.
I keep doing that, and I apologize, but I'm really just trying to get quick clarification of a couple of things.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
I'm not looking for an explanation for anything as much as I'm trying to understand some things. So, in my mind, I thought recently you brought it up. You didn't say that you may have to come to us. That's all I'm trying to figure out. Yes or no? Did you bring it up recently? Because in my mind you did. I just want a yes or no.
I don't recall bringing it up. I don't.
So I thought it came up. Yeah. Somebody said something about it somewhere, because I was aware that you may come in front of us again.
Right.
But I can't tell you then if it didn't come up at the table, then I don't know where it came up. But that's all I was trying to get to.
I don't think it was me. It may have been someone as tall and good looking as me, but not me.
Okay. It did come up somewhere. It came up somewhere, and whoever brought it up was not in favor of it, but I don't remember where that came from. So us approving this budget it's still got to come to us as a separate request, correct?
I don't know as to your procedure, but I do know that the only thing that this commission would be approving would be that millage. The rest of the budget is required to be approved by the Human Services Board. And we present it,
so it's
we provide it to the county for transparency's sake, so it goes into your reporting, but there's nothing that comes out of the general fund.
Okay,
here.
so it's your position that when we approve the budget, if that's in there, we then have approved for that millage to be assessed. I'll
defer to the pros on that.
Okay, because that's all I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get process down here, not an explanation of the finances.
Sure.
As much as I'm trying to develop process here.
Commissioner, could I ask Steve to speak to that?
Yes, Commissioner. The process of approving this budget as part of the countywide budget alone would not be enough. You would, though, as a singular action, if you recall from the first time we levied this, be able to add it to the budget appropriation ordinance under tax levies, where the amount not to exceed would be stated, and then the time that the levy would be stated. And that's what we did last time. And then that's the authorization along with a signed L4029 later on.
It's an addition to, as opposed to just approving the budget just because it's stated in there. Because I figured there has to be some sort of motion that says we're levying something that we weren't levying last year. So I think I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, on my side, I would restate the budget ordinance piece. On your side, you might want to check with your staff to make sure that the motions that you did last time are duplicated this time.
Okay. All right. That is all I was trying to do. Thank you.
Commissioner Song.
Thank you, Chair. So can you explain again the $1.3 million, like what that would go towards? Is it the capital plan? Is it the HVAC? Is it personnel?
It actually is to repay the capital project that we did several years ago. We had a requirement by the federal government to enhance our dining services, and so it required a pretty significant renovation. At the time, we did not have any money appropriated for that ourselves, but so we used the money out of our fund. But then we had a pitch point in dollars. So I'd be pleased to talk with you some more offline because it's pretty extensive what happened here, and I don't want to trouble the entire commission. But I'd be pleased to talk to you about how that all played out. But it would replace the money that we spent on the construction, the $4.2 million project. It would pretty much take care of that.
So it's paying back the debt.
Yeah. Well, we don't have a debt because we paid cash for it. I'm not allowed to have debt unless it's through this county.
Paying back the $4.2 million?
$4.2 million that we paid out of our funds.
$2 million.
Yes.
Who is it paying back to?
Martha T. Berry. And as you can see, I'm using it directly in this year's budget.
I don't think I quite understand.
I'd be pleased to talk with you some more about it.
And then when you talk to Commissioner Zinner about the millage for residents would be like $4 per household, is that based on an amount that the property is worth, or because it's percentage-wise, right?
Yes. So what that is that there's a specific percentage that you use to go against per mill, and then you take a look at the average value of a home. So it's right around $4.70 is what I believe it was.
Okay, the average value, what would that be?
100,000.
100,000.
Yeah, I think it's 100 and.
But
yeah,
home values have
SEV.
gone up, so
Right.
I feel like
Well-
that seems to be a little low.
Well, yeah, but it would be a not to exceed, as you heard, because I'm not asking for more money than what the construction project had, because according to the rule, this money has to be used to expand services or come into regulatory compliance.
So the money, the 4.2 million has already been used, it's gone.
Yeah, we already paid it. Yes.
I would just add very quickly that last time, and we'll do it again this time, we'll provide a document that would give you the average levy for the average home value in Macomb County, because I believe it's a little more than that now, of course, like you said, with the average home, and it's based off of that. We'll run that by the treasurer's office and get something a little more firm.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I'm trying to understand it, and I want to support that. I want to support the budget and our senior citizens, but I have to kind of go with Commissioner Kraft. And I'm not even that conservative, but I feel really bad going to the residents and, taxing them for this purpose. And, we have 176 some million coming from the ARP fund. I'm just wondering if some of that could come from there or other sources. Thank you.
And I understand everybody is asking for that money, so I do understand that. Thank you. And if you talk with Commissioner Kraft, he can share with you all the different things we tried to get through to say yes. We did all the things that I think you're asking for before, but these are different circumstances now, Commissioner Kraft. So, but we had a lot of no's before we finally got to that one.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Commissioner Matuzak.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'm really confused, so I'm going to ask a bunch of questions here. So we have this budget page, setting aside the millage at this moment. We have this budget page, which really doesn't mean anything to us.
No, except for transparency.
Except for transparency,
Right. So,
okay.
so what we had before, I was told, I wasn't here, but I was told that there was a concern about that. So we actually provide a budget every year so that the community knows what we do with the money that we receive.
Okay,
As
but
ma-
it has nothing to
No.
do with our funds, it has nothing to do, okay, got that part.
That is correct.
All right, now I'm good. All right, describe the millage that you're talking about? Amount?
It would be a 0.5 mil millage, a 0.05 mil.
0.05.
0.05,
All right, and the
millage.
duration?
Just one time,
One time?
yes.
And what I hear you describing is you would take the money generated from that and basically pay back for the construction that you were required to do.
Right, and
How
what we,
how does that get you to the upgrade of the HVAC system that is what you really need to do?
what that would do is allow us to pay our debt. We have 1 year left on our building use agreement because we have a bond, a 20-year bond. We're on year 19, so we would pay that off, which would give us roughly about 1.2 million. I would take a portion of that and begin putting it into a sinking fund or a restricted fund. Steve Adair knows that we're allowed to fund our depreciation as an allowable expense, and we restrict it to that. So the goal, long-term goal, would be to have a fund that keeps Martha T. Berry solid without ever having to ask for this again. But it's going to take several years to build it in a way that we can do that. So we're going to duct tape and Band-Aid and baling wire things for a few years while we get that enough to be able to do that. But once that front of the house is done, we'll start that aggressively with the sinking fund with a large portion of what we've been paying the county back for that bond. And then hopefully we won't ever have to have this conversation again.
I bet you said that before, however, which is...
You heard it prior to COVID.
Yeah,
That I'm
which
hoping.
is
Yes, yep, you did.
sort of the issue here.
Mm-hmm.
Because my concern is we know we need to replace that HVAC system, the air circulation system at the building.
Yeah, CDC asked us to
Right.
upgrade.
The
yes.
CDC has asked us.
Right. It's not a recommendation. It's not a requirement. It's a recommendation.
Right. And until it becomes a requirement.
Right.
Which is what happened with food service area, and things start as recommendations and then they move to requirements, and then we have to pull money from the fund to pay for that because it's now a requirement. We have a recommendation about the HVAC system, which could easily become a requirement as we learn more about COVID and how it spreads and all of that. You're asking for a one-time fix to fix what has already happened, but that leaves you with nothing for future requirements.
That's correct, but I had less than nothing when I started here 5 years ago.
All right, I'm just trying to get this in my head. I'm not necessarily opposed to it. I've got to figure out how this all fits together.
And I'm happy to have you over, meet you for a cup of coffee if you'd like to talk further. It'd be a privilege to serve you in that way.
I'm very concerned about Martha T. Berry. I think it's a very important service we offer. We are the spot of last resort for so many families and our elderly citizens, and I'm very concerned that it continue to fly. I just want to make sure it flies in a way that makes sense. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Romano.
Hi, Kev. Really grilling you this time, huh? This is a receive and file, am I correct, Chair? Okay. And Kev, I'm going to piggyback with Commissioner Kleinfeld. Standing at the same podium last year, this was a one-time, we can handle it, give me this millage, I'll take care of it. And that did not pass unanimously. You did have some pushback from some of the commissioners, and I was one of them. I will admit I was one of them. That old 0.5 millage at one time, now that she's speaking them out, approximately $4.70 for the millage, one time, she's back again, okay? Sterling Heights has got a safe stream millage. That's a 20-year millage for $80. That started off just up to $125. We've got a recreating recreation, another 20-year millage. You can go millage and millage and millage. We're borrowing money to pay back the county because the county gave money. I honestly think Commissioner Kraft has the best idea. let's dig into somewhere that we have in our fund to come up with, it's needed. First of all, you need it, Kev. I'm not going to just say that you don't. And you do. You provide a safety net for people that have no other place to go. And it's our county and it's our people. But I'll say it up front. I won't vote for another millage. I absolutely refuse to vote for a millage. I didn't vote for the last one. I won't vote for this one. I think you need it, and I think we can find it in our budget, and I think you deserve it. Thank you. That's all I have, Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner. Couple questions. So, ARC funding that's coming in, would this qualify under that, Steve?
We have to look at that.
Okay.
Not one of the areas we would use it.
Okay. Next question. Just looking at your fund balance over the next few years here, it looks like you are increasing, which is good, kind of to the tune of $1.3 million. Probably just happened that way, which is a good sign. I also agree with Commissioner Romano and Commissioner Kraft on this. I think we're going to have to just find the money somewhere to make this work. But if that is the case, I think we'd have to have that unrestricted funds. Have to have a line item here where it's restricted, because right now, you know, obviously you have unrestricted funds. If we're going to specifically fund that issue and resolve the issue, I think it needs to be restricted. So that's just my point there.
Well, Chair Sabatini, the challenge with what you're saying there is recognize that I've already paid it, and you're asking me to wait for it when I have current actual fiscal responsibilities right now to the county. So I've got 1.2 I still have to pay you this year.
Yep. No, when I mean
right?
restricted, I mean restricted specifically for that purpose, so that you can get paid back specifically. So it can't be used for anything else in your budget. That's what I'm referring to. Commissioner Kleinfeld, second round.
Thank you. A couple of things. The first is, we can find it, but we fall back on that argument over whether or not we can require the county executive to spend it that way. Because that's the thing that we have never gone to court over, that there's been an argument over. But I believe his position is going to be that the county should not subsidize Martha T. I think that's what his position was before. And I don't know that that's changed. So we have to take that into account one way or the other. So that's number one. And number two, several people have expressed their opinion up here. That does not mean a decision has been made. There has to actually be a presentation and a vote on that particular issue. I just want to clarify that. I mean, maybe there can be a discussion with the county executive chair. I'd like to know where his position is before we did anything. Thank you. Are you going to come and speak, or? Yes. Okay. Yes, please.
I heard just went cold in here.
Yeah, the other thing, Commissioner Kleinfeld, that we'd have to also analyze is the operating agreement that we have with Martha T, and ensure that we do not infringe on any of those provisions, not only from a uniform budgeting and accounting perspective, but also from the statutes that we put in there.
Thank you. I just want to, I want to make sure it's a little more complicated than just us finding the money somewhere. Thank you.
Truly.
Commissioner Van Sickle.
Thank you, Chair. I would suggest that whether we pay it out of the general fund or whether we pass a millage, the county is paying it one way or the other. So the county residents are paying the millage, or the county residents are funding the county budget, which would pay it. So the county people are paying that one way or the other. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Okay. Seeing Commissioner Zinner.
I was early also. I'd like to make a motion that we pass the millage.
You can't do it. That's out of order.
Yeah, Commissioner, at this time, we're not taking any amendments to the budget. If you want to talk with staff, That'd be something totally separate, though, because the millage is not even in discussion right now in regards to the budget
Thank you,
itself.
Chair.
Any other speakers? Seeing none, if we can please vote. Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you, everyone.
Motion passes 10-0.
Okay, next item is commissioners' comments. Are there any commissioners that would like to speak? Trying to get there on my screen, just bear with me. Commissioner Kraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Real quick, just in response to Commissioner Kleinfeld's comments, yes, I know it's not as easy as finding a couple line items and throwing money in a different direction. I know there's a lot of T's to cross and I's to dot, with the agreements and things like that. So I just wanted to let Commissioner Kleinfeld know that I am well aware that it is a more difficult process than I might have alluded to. So thank you, Mr. Chair. JP, you can calm down now.
He's pacing back there. Commissioner Song.
Thank you, Chair. So this is not about the budget. I had asked Crystal to see if there were any electric vehicle charging stations around here, and I don't think that there is. So I would like to propose, or perhaps have staff help us find out how we could probably get one in the garage, because I do drive a hybrid, and I know it would be very beneficial for me. It feels great not having to go to the gas station to pump on a weekly basis, and so I know the state is investing, billions of dollars in creating, accessible areas for electric vehicles while also ramping up electric vehicle production. And so I just think that, we should move in that direction. And if we can find out if there are any grants or any way that we could get like 1 or 2 outlets here, I would be all for it. So thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Commissioner Romano.
Thank you, Chair. I won't expound on what Commissioner Kraft just said about obtaining the money that easily. We do realize that it isn't that easy. I just wanted to make sure we clarified that, Commissioner Kleinfeld. I had an opportunity last week Friday, to obtain my booster shot at the Vermeulen Center. And again, I want to tell you, wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. No muss, no fuss, 20 minutes, in and out. Vicki, you're here now. I have to commend your staff one more time. That's 3 times I have to commend them. I'm telling you, they do an outstanding job. I bet you I've referred just in my own district at least a half a dozen people who were thinking of going to whatever, drugstores or wherever they wanted to go to, and they all went down to the Vermeulen Center. All of them came back with the same statement. Fantastic, did a great job. The crew was right, very friendly. Just, you got to give credit where credit is due. And now I will give credit to my beautiful wife for yesterday for staying with me for 53 years. That's all I have.
Absolutely.
Commissioner Zinner.
Oh, I didn't know it was on. There's a charging station just below Hall Road on Gratiot at the Harley-Davidson. I think it's a full charging station, whichever they are. And there's 2 charging stations on Gratiot in front of Gus's. And just up the road from here. You can get a great Greek salad there too.
Okay, seeing no other speakers, we'll go to public participation. This is the second opportunity for public participation about any item, any issue. Anyone from public would like to speak? Going once, twice, 3 times. We'll close public participation. Need a motion to adjourn made by Commissioner Romano, supported by
Zinner.
Please vote. Enjoy the rest of your evening, Commissioners.
It's dark outside. Wait till they change the time. We're really going to get better.
Adrienne, are we good?
Motion passes 10-0.